Wow, that was one hell of a hit. Oh, I had. Oh, oh, hello there. Whew. Welcome to Grimlore, your place for all your grimdark science fiction and fantasy needs. Oh, holy fuck, my head. Sorry. We've just been since the unfortunate passing of our last bartender, we've been looking for a new one. Holy crap, I can't. Um, hey, my boy, Brody, right? Sorry,
Yeah.
give me 2 seconds. I gotta
You talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you, my boy.
What's
Oh
going
boy.
on?
So you're joining us on this little cruise, right? Can you turn on
Yeah.
the sun?
I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay. Um, where the hell is Gerald?
Uh, Maybe he's looking for a drink.
So then I told the mermaid that, oh, hey, Rayway's up from his high. How you doing, buddy?
Um, I'm feeling the hangover. My
Ah,
plan: more warpstone.
glorious.
Hey.
You kind of fell asleep at the bartender's funeral. You forget that we buried him
I
at sea,
mean,
right?
oh! That was his funeral. Oh shit! That was his bar mitzvah. Oh, that explains a lot.
It was very heartfelt.
Yeah.
Uh,
And... Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate the life and sad passing of the noble Grimlore bartender, whose name I never actually figured to learn. Oh dear. Well, due to his untimely passing at the hands of a very loving guest of Nurgle, he always wanted to be buried at sea. So, to fulfill his last wishes, we shall do that now. Let's pause for a moment of respect, shall we?
Why?
Okay, that's enough. All right, throw him overboard, guys. Ah,
Well, that's over with.
oh, look at that. So peaceful. Oh, shit, the man-eating clams are getting them. Damn. All right, Captain, steer this around.
Oh,
So,
that's awkward.
so
What a
yeah.
waste of chum.
So you don't remember any of that, Ray? You must have been really stoned. You must have been really warp stoned there.
Well,
Dudes.
considering one of my main memories is throwing the bartender on a chair and spinning him around, I'm gonna hope that was a hallucination, not something I actually did.
We don't talk about that, Ray.
Yeah, don't say anything, Brandon. I
Oh,
swear I'll
God.
throw you off.
That is awkward. So another news. Besides my poor disrespect of the guy who's very clearly dead. Where are we?
Okay, so since we chartered a boat here and we have weighed anchor now, let's come off of the boat because we are at a very special place, which is very relevant to what we're talking about today. And yes, I'm taking over for this one, baby.
Woo!
See, I partially lied to you. You were probably too stoned to remember it, but we are in fact looking for a new bartender, but two, I'm on the look for a fantastic new drink to try and add, and it is called estus. So, Rayway, we are currently on a beach right now, and you see all these massive trees and just this gray sky in the background and a very murky lake that we're sitting in.
No.
This reminds me of my childhood home, so I'm not getting a great feeling about this place.
Okay,
I feel like this is very clearly giving me boss music vibes.
Okay, well, let's just stay on this side of the sandbar because on the other side there is a massive hydra. So stay here, and I'm going to tell you about this wonderful place called Ash Lake, which is the setting of one of my favorite series ever, and that is Dark Souls.
I thought I escaped this.
So,
Ooh, is it perhaps dark and grim?
it is quite dark and grim. We're not just talking
Oh,
about
dang.
Dark Souls because obviously something as
broad and vast
as Dark Souls is going to require many, many episodes. So we're going to narrow it down to just one little subject. Brody, do you know anything about Ash Lake?
I know a little bit. It's been a while since I've played the games, so I'm gonna have to brush myself up on it, which I mean, great that we're talking about it. But I've played all of them except a little bit of two. So I didn't finish two.
Okay. So, the reason I say, and the reason we are actually in Ash Lake is because it is home to a particular creature. Because we are talking about
Oh, it just hit me. Hydra. Okay, yeah,
not just the
continue.
Hydra, not just the Hydra. We are talking about the dragons of Dark Souls.
Oh shit! I know the dragons in Dark Souls are like really fucking cool, and like you need like lightning or some shit to like hurt them because they're like really fucking sturdy or some shit.
Mm-hmm. And we will
It's
go
like the
into.
extent. Oh wait, and there's like a weird like vagina one or something.
So many memories.
This episode, Ray, was actually sponsored by you. A long time ago, when I gave you the choice between numbers 1 and 2, I think you picked 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Number 2 was the Dragons of Dark Souls. Everyone give a big round of applause to our Elven Bard sponsor.
Yay! What was it? What was option one?
That will be for a later time. I'm not going to spoil it.
Okay.
I'm going to have to make you wait for it. Alrighty.
Interesting.
This is going to go to my first question is is y'all's experience already with Dark Souls? Like what do you know about it? So that way I have an idea of what to go over, what to learn, you fine folks. Let's start with our guest, Brody.
So my experience with Dark Souls is both vast and small at the same time because I've played all the games except Dark Souls 2 in its entirety and Sekiro in terms of FromSoft games. But the lore that I know about the Dark Souls series specifically is like a lot, but not a lot because it's confusing and I'm not certain about much of it, you know? Um, but I'm very familiar with a lot of the names that you're probably going to be mentioning. So I'd say I'm 80% there, sort of, kind of, maybe.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. And Dark Souls is very well. Anything by FromSoft is very infamous for vaguely defined lore that you really have to dig and take a lot of
Yeah.
Interpretive liberties with. So
Yeah.
but Rayway, what is your experience with Dark Souls? Like, what do you know of it?
I played Dark Souls 3 because my friend would not stop pressuring me to play it, so I played it with him. My general comments was that the game, like, originally the reason why I didn't want to play it was because it was too hard. So my buddy decided that he would like basically carry me through the game to like basically just experience it with him, which was fine. But like we kind of concluded that wasn't a good option. So then I restarted the game from ground zero and worked on that. During my playthroughs, though, I would regularly listen to the Dark Souls lore videos, but I like never retained any of them. Mostly because like I was listening to them at the same time as I was playing, so like my attention was very intensely skewed and like spread between the two. But I basically got the general layout of the world. I figured out that Pontiff Sullivan is a bitch, and it took me fucking forever to kill him. But I just brute forced my way through it because I refused to play the game as I'm supposed to.
Sounds
What's
about
that? I'm supposed to parry and dodge? Fuck you, two-handed greatsword, bitch.
Sounds like you beat him the way I beat him.
I beat all the guys the same way. It's literally brute force it. Okay, I can't win brute force it. Okay, I can't win brute force it. Okay, how about this? I roll and then I brute force it.
You literally played the same exact way I do for all 3 games.
Yeah. Well, my concept is I'm gonna play the game as I want to, and I'm gonna fuck you up if I can't. I'm the guy who got a PlayStation membership card for my birthday. Realized that two of the like 20 digits or whatever on the card were gone. So I literally went through every possible combination of passcodes to try and make sure I got my fucking like $50 credit on PlayStation.
Talk about brute forcing your way through that.
Oh,
Mm-mm-mm.
It wasn't a lot. I was only missing 2 digits, so I think that was Okay, I think that was like 99 possible combinations, but still.
It's better than like I don't know how many digits was the code? Like 20 or something?
Yeah. Like it
Yeah.
was literally just like the last two were like gone. Because when I was like scraping it off, they were kind of fucked. They got like scraped. And I was like, shit, okay. Well, I spent $50 on this. So I'm gonna get my money's worth. So
Well, let me ask you
that's how I
this
play
too.
games. That's how I got. Yeah, I didn't beat Dark Souls though. I got to what part did I get to for Dark Souls 3? Fuck. I beat Pontiff Sullivan. Oh, I got to. I know his name isn't Sullivan, but I say Sullivan because it's funnier. But I got to the big ass stone castle that
Oh, you made it
has
to Anne
a
Orlando?
grim. Yeah, I think it was Anne Orlando, and it has a Grim Reaper guy inside the church. And I tried to brute force him, but holy no, it's not a Grim Reaper. I think no. Yeah, it's a boss battle where you're inside this like really small room, and I think he's a wheel guy, and he's like a shadowy demon dude.
Okay, you're talking
But I
about
Yeah.
know I was
Aldrich.
Yeah, but I know I was like really fucking with him, and I was like, "Okay, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna take a break." And then I just never went back to it. But I know that my favorite weapon was the Astor's greatsword because it's a greatsword, but it looked like a rapier, just like a really heavy rapier, and that just kind of vibes with me. I like the idea that it's like a thrusting greatsword, basically.
Okay. So I'm glad that
Yeah,
I'm glad that you made it to Anne Orlando. I'm if only you saw it in its original splendor, which that actually led to my was gonna lead to my question of like what made you decide to start on 3?
my buddy dragged me along with it. He said not to play two, because two wasn't that good or was fine, and then there was no PlayStation 4 version of Dark Souls One. So he's like, "Yeah, just play three." And then I was like, "Okay, I'll play three." And
Ah.
then after that, I played Bloodborne, but I never finished it.
Yes.
I
No.
got. Oh no, I got a couple hours into it. I know I really liked Bloodborne, but it's a thing where I don't have time to throw myself at a game as much as I used to now because time like work is just ass. So I can like throw like 10 hours at a game to try and beat a boss. I have to kind of manage my time more appropriately now between all my different hobbies and life things.
I hear you there.
Responsibilities.
Yes, otherwise I
Responsibilities.
would
They
definitely
suck.
I would definitely have like fucked with Dark Souls more. I've definitely wanted to download it in these last couple weeks, but I just haven't. Never really been considering it.
Well, you don't have to worry about that. But anyways,
Yeah.
further proof of point of to why Dark Souls is one of my favorite all-time series, along with Halo and some others, is remember Ray how you mentioned that you have like a ghost model from Destiny on your shelf.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
painting of Anne Orlando hanging up in my living room that I'm sending y'all right now.
That sounds
Oh wow,
awesome.
that's a great painting.
Ooh, that's really fucking cool.
Mm-hmm. That's like original
And
concept
I like
art of
that.
how Anne Orlando is supposed to look in Dark Souls 1, and it actually was good enough to be used in game as a painting. So very
Yeah.
meta. Very, very cool.
That's pretty cool. Oh yeah, I also know that the world has like cycles, and every cycle it gets progressively worse.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole like a possible ending or possible endings where it's like you can like keep the cycle going, you can end the cycle, you can like rule over the cycles or some shit like that. And I
Yep.
always like the idea of ruling the cycle because uh, continuing the cycle perpetuates like entropy, and then giving up on the cycle just isn't something I aspire to. Like if you're going like, I don't believe you should give up, and destroying the cycle is giving up. So I'd rather like take the power into my own hands and rule the cycle or whatever the fuck that third option was.
Yeah.
All right, so you pretty much nailed like the basic concept of Dark Souls, but for the sake of the uninitiated, for those listeners that have no clue what we're talking about, Dark Souls is a dark fantasy series that are, as you know, we have all just stated, like they are extremely difficult games. unless you just know how to play and cheese the bosses, but that's beside the point. And then, but the emphasis, like the main theme, the main draw of it is these impossible challenges. It's designed in a way to where you're throwing yourself at these challenges, and then that satisfaction, that reward, surpassing these challenges, be it like an extremely hard level with a bunch of enemies that cheese you and have stupid hitboxes and gank you for no stupid reason. But anyways, I'm projecting just a little bit. But or fighting, or
He started dipping into his trauma.
yes. See, this is actually a therapy session for not just y'all but myself. But no.
Yeah, we all got a vent after finishing Dark Souls.
Yeah, that's definitely the charm. But yeah, so it's basically built on like suffering through this challenge, rage quitting if you're of that kind, and then like once you've beaten the game, like you have that certain level of satisfaction of just like, oh wow, it's over. Anyways, but the main backdrop and the main setting is a world that is constantly going through a cycle of fire and dark, like what you were just talking about, Rayway. And also, like what you were mentioning, it is up to you as the player to decide whether you want this Age of Fire to continue or let it snuff out and become an Age of Dark, where you can become the quote-unquote Dark Lord. Do not confuse that with like a Lord Voldemort or Dark Lord Sauron. Sorry to disappoint everybody.
The Dark Lord.
Yeah, I know that the Dark Lord in Dark Souls is like a more neutral gray position. Like it doesn't, like, just because you're the Dark Lord doesn't mean you're objectively evil or something like that.
Right. It's just it in this case it literally means just no without fire, without light. Since you are more familiar with Dark Souls 3, we are actually going to be covering basically the entire Dark Souls trilogy as far as like the dragons are concerned and
fun.
And the dragon bosses. So thankfully there's not that many, so hopefully this episode doesn't go on for too terribly long unless either I ramble or we just get derailed, but we'll get there when we get there.
No, the lie detector determined that was a lie.
But to provide context, just like we did with the Elite episode, let's start from the very beginning, because this is a very, very good cutscene in the very first Dark Souls. The world was formless and gray, and it was shrouded in fog and great arch trees, kind of like what you see around us here in Ash Lake. Ruling this planet was not dinosaurs, but was called the Everlasting Dragon. They are ginormous creatures. Like, think of your typical dragon. Now, Brody, what would you imagine a typical dragon to be? Try not to think Dark Souls.
Oh Lord. I imagine my typical dragon, obviously like the usual wings lizard thing. Maybe the size of like a smaller house, medium to small house, you know?
Okay.
Is generally what I think of.
All right. What about you, Ray?
A giant reptile with wings that breathes fire, potentially greedy, a major force of nature, and sometimes intelligent.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, I think we can all agree that basically sums up like your typical fantasy dragon. So What Dark Souls does is take this up a notch or 12. And as you see in this picture that I just sent y'all, it is a 4 legs, four wings, ginormous, probably like the size of maybe small hills, and there actually is one that does grow about to the size of a mountain, like Calagon the Black from Lord of the Rings. That's another reference for everyone.
That's what I've been thinking of this whole time. But
they also have, if you zoom in, they have like a sort of somewhat furry appearance around the scruff of their neck, but they also have, their scales are made of stone. They are supposed to represent like elements of the earth, and that is why they're called the Everlasting Dragons, because like if you think about it in terms of our world, like the earth is always going to be here. Rock and stone, they're always going to be here. They're going to outlive us. That's what you have.
Rock and stone
to the bone. But so that's what
it's
you have.
It's a reflex.
That's what you have here with these dragons, and they ruled basically the Dark Souls world. And But the thing is, though, because they represent something that is static, because there is just nothing but gray fog and trees, like it was just like kind of like a flat line almost. But then one day came fire. Deep within the earth, deep within what will be called the kiln of the first flame, ignites a giant fire that sets off disparity among the world. With fire, you have change into the world. You have life, death, light, dark, and emotion and everything that comes with it. And then from this fire, that's from what we can piece together the lore, that's where other creatures, other intelligent creatures came about. Humanity, the gods, giants.
Interesting.
So it went from like a gray, lifeless void to the second you introduced anything, it just produced its opposite and then continued to multiply into things and its opposite over and over and over again, almost like a Big Bang.
Pretty much. So yeah, so now you have like disparity and change versus just static, constant nothingness. Along with this static change, I forgot there was one particular dragon among these everlasting dragons that I don't know if it was ever established he came about before or after the first flame or the great fire happened, but he was actually born without these stone scales that gave the dragons immortality, because the dragons having these stone scales be representing nature and static, just static nothingness, they have natural immortality. Just like elves, they won't die of old age, or they won't die of aging. They can be killed, as we will come to discover later. However, one particular dragon who was not born with these stone scales is one Seath the Scaleless. And here's his picture right here. He looks a little bit different from the everlasting
This
dragon.
is the shiny, like soft-looking one, or not soft. It looks it looks almost like a skinless snake. I've seen him before. He looks like really like beautiful almost compared to like all the other dragons.
Yep,
He's the Barbie of the group.
Yep, he's the Barbie of the group. He was born without these scales, which that explains why he has like this pale, fleshy texture to him, and his wings are not necessarily malformed, but they look more fairy-like. They look more fae-like. Here's a concept art of him too, and he doesn't have like your typical legs. He has like 3 tentacles, so he's just like waddling around like a freaking octopus almost. But
he's very ethereal. He gives me like Eldritch vibes. Like his wings look like a galaxy, And then the tentacles, for me personally, I hearken that back to like Cthulhu. So he's obviously different,
Yep. So, and the other thing too is he's completely blind. He has no eyes whatsoever.
Right.
So that's also like the major difference between him and the other everlasting dragons. So being
sightless, scaleless outcast of the gods.
Exactly. And so because of those factors right there, he has this deep-rooted resentment of his fellow dragonkin, because he knows he's going to die at some point eventually, but he wants to have that immortality just like his cousins. So all this resentment is building up in him, and it keeps building up in him. And he will actually be very important in our discussion with this episode, because a lot of stuff that happens in both Dark Souls 2 and 3 are also attributed to him. So, but for the sake of the story, let's keep on going. So, now as I was telling you, humanity, the gods, giants, and whatnot, all these other creatures came about with the first flame. So there was something special about the first flame too. Something called Lord Souls, which is like a special think like warpstone. So Ray,
interesting beginning.
Yeah, so Ray, you know how warpstone you use to amplify your magical power or whatnot, and it mutates and it warps people, creatures, things,
that's
or whatnot.
exactly what use it for.
Yep, and then of course, like the more warpstone you have, the more powerful your magic can become or whatnot. So think of these these Lord Souls kind of like very special warpstones. I'm oversimplifying
Okay,
this,
that's
so
fun.
don't at me, listeners. Don't at me, listeners. But and there are 4 Lord Souls that came about from this first flame. The Lord Soul of Death, which was claimed by one character called Grave Lord Nito, and he is given the title of the First of the Dead. And so it's kind of one of the lore tubers brought it up that you don't know if he's called First of the Dead because he's the most powerful of the dead, or if because he was literally the first creature to die. But this is what he looks
Right.
like. A nice big skeleton wrapped in a cloak with a lovely, lovely scythe sword thing.
This guy's character design is right up my alley. I love it all. I love his lore and the implications he has, and his obvious harkening back to like the Grim Reaper, but with a very dark fantasy, Dark Soulsy twist
Mm-hmm.
that Miyazaki always manages to pull off.
Mm-hmm. And like when I very first played Dark Souls, it's like there's not that much that usually there's not much in video games that really creeps me out other than like the loud noises because it hurts my ears. But his character design, like a skeleton is one thing, but just the way Miyazaki has designed him is just like it's unsettling to me.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. I mean, he does a really good job of that. But moving on, so he has the Lord Soul of Death, which naturally he grants him the power of the dead. But like we said with fire, you have disparity, so you have polar opposites of each other. So there is so where there is death, there is also a Lord Soul of life. And life is claimed by who will be known as the Witch of Izalith. And that is her.
She's hot.
It's hot, bang it.
Dude, it's like a silhouette. Like, calm down.
She has
Hot silhouette.
Well, she is famous for having 1 son and 7 daughters, and her story will be, we'll call them 7 daughters of chaos, and there's a reason for that, and we'll get to in just a little bit. But to continue on, and then the other 2 Lord Souls are light and dark. So for the Lord Soul of Light, it was claimed by one Gwyn, 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 the Lord of Sunlight.
Woo!
And that is him.
One of my favorites.
Yep, you can tell he's kind of like
a jackass.
It's funny you mentioned that, Ray. You know, he kind of has that old kingly look and everything. If you want to think about this,
He looks like an old Yuha Bach from Bleach. You guys don't get the reference, but I do.
I'm sorry, I'm not a weeb.
I'm sorry, I'm not that much of a nerd. Jeez.
Oh yes, we'll gush over like, feudal Japanese samurai in the Elite episode, and you call us weebs. But then you say, you don't get the reference for Bleach. Anyways.
Hey, Bleach is cool, okay?
In terms of real world mythology, though, like think of Gwyn as like a cross between Odin and Zeus, and has the asshole qualities of both.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Actually,
because when it comes
to
his,
feel like super paranoid.
Yeah, pretty much. And he let's just say for our purposes as of right now, he doesn't exactly have a stellar track record with his family. He's that kind of a father.
No.
We'll cover that more because some of the boss characters and some of the dragon stuff is kind of it's about 80% of the story is relevant to Gwyn, and you'll find out why. But he has the Lord Soul of Light. Fire, flame, light. I mean, he's the Lord of Sunlight. And for some reason, From Software has this thing for associating sunlight and divinity with lightning, which I don't know, I always found kind of interesting. In a way, it kind of makes sense, but because like you think sunlight, you think fire, flame, heat, but Gwyn's power is lightning, which that also brings the Zeus parallels a lot. If you're thinking in terms of Greek mythology, but you were going to say something, right?
Yeah.
Well, I can kind of see how they could associate with lightning because like fire and sunlight, and the sun is plasma, and lightning is literally plasma. So like I could see that being like the instead of doing the obvious parallel of the sun being fire, they did a higher degree or like another level of elemental relation where instead of the sun being fire, like it's typically portrayed, and because the sun is literally a giant ball of plasma and iron, they decided to make his power lightning, which I actually kind of enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
It's way more of a interesting dynamic, and it also reminds me of how Age of Sigmar actually handles light. But we'll get to that episode when we get to that episode.
Cool.
Yeah,
And
no, I mean the inspiration from like the kami and the Japanese pantheon and everything, and like the amount of power, like the deity of the sun was the leader of the pantheon. He was their Zeus or Odin, you know, and then the close relation that lightning has with warfare and everything in that culture. It doesn't surprise me that they boiled that into Gwyn.
yep, and kind of going along those lines too, Brody. Of if either of you have played or know enough of Sekiro,
Hmm.
there are different lightning abilities and there are fire abilities, but lightning is always associated with like Japanese divinity, and then fire is always just associated with mankind, and
Yeah.
in that sort of respect. So that again, the divinity, lightning, sunlight, that it all comes together in a really good way, that in a really interesting way that From Soft is just love their work. Anyways.
They always tell a story so well through those analogies that they create through the characters.
Oh yeah, like it really works too if you already have like a working knowledge of like Japanese mythology and ancient Japanese culture, and the
Oh yeah.
way, and then there's just like the way he blends it with like what we as Westerners consider like mythology, fantasy.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
anyways, we're getting a little sidetracked. So, Lord of Light, Lord of Sunlight, Lightning, all that good stuff, fire. Anyways, and then there
Kaboom.
is one more Lord Soul, the Lord Soul of Dark, the Dark Soul. Roll credits, everybody.
Woo! We did it.
It has been claimed by a character known as the Furtive Pygmy, and I do not have a picture of him because, as the game likes to point out, he is so easily forgotten. So a lot of folks in lore tubers speculate that the Furtive Pygmy is the primordial ancestor of humanity, and so there's a lot of there's a lot of speculation that
You've got mail.
Oh, thank you, Brody. Yeah,
course.
that's like all we have. This picture, if you can
Yep.
see this picture here, Ray, that's all we have on this guy.
The like 10 words that this picture says instead of 1,000, like most pictures, this is literally all the lore we have.
Well, I can kind of see why they would say the furtive pygmy would be the like primogenitor of humankind, because like aren't pygmy an actual thing in human history / culture where they were like shorter, smaller aboriginals from Africa or something? Wasn't that like something I remember hearing? I could obviously be wrong.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
yeah.
There are like pygmy tribes in Africa or South America or even the Aborigines in Australia, like
And
like
Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia. Sorry. So it's shorter in stature, just smaller framed human beings. Yeah, that is something that that you can glean from him being a primordial ancestor of humanity. One thing to consider though is the way he's kind of framed in the picture. He still looks relatively human in height. So like I'm a short kid. I'm like in real life I'm like 5'6". Ray, you're like what 5'8", 5'9". Brody, I don't know how tall you are, but that's like average around that level of height. The reason he's called a pygmy in lore is because Gwyn is like 8 or 9 feet tall.
Aren't they like Primarch size or some shit? I remember hearing or like seeing the entire like castle of Orlando, or I'm sorry, however it's pronounced, is like it's like slightly upscale, like it's like slightly bigger or some shit.
Yeah.
Like there's like cities or architecture that's like just slightly bigger, that's almost too big for humans. And it's meant to like imply that the gods or the original inhabitants of the city were like just bigger. And I thought that was like such a cool concept, like that idea. Because I remember going up the castle stairs and like hearing that or learning about that, and I was like, that is such a cool little bit of world building of like the steps are like just like 2 inches too high than normal or some shit like that.
Right.
And,
Well, I mean, one thing about that is that his physical stature like reflects himself, like his own archetype as a character. Because furtive, I just looked up the definition. Furtive means attempting to avoid notice or attention, typically because of guilt or a belief discovery would lead to trouble. So, like, out of all four primordial beings, he's just trying to hide, as the name suggests, out of shame. And so he's the smallest of stature. He's the least that's known about. It's just interesting what they point at as to why we might know so little about him.
mm-hmm. And that just leads to the, furtive pygmy. He is so easily forgotten. Like, he's just kind of off in his corner doing his own thing. And we'll cover this in just a little bit, but but it is also speculated that, like, okay, so Nito, the Witch of Izalith, and Gwyn, they have these Lord Souls. They are using that to beef up their own power. Like, they're already powerful creatures anyways, but they're using those Lord Souls to beef themselves up even more. Like, like think back to our Sigmar episode where, like, he has, like, the magic hammer or the Warhammer or whatnot. And
Warhammer,
and he steps through the flame of Ulrich. I might be saying that. Yeah. He steps through the flame of Ulrich, and that beefs up his own power.
Mm-hmm.
And here in Dark Souls, you can actually divide up that power and give it to other people at your whim, at your own will. So there's a lot of speculation that what the furtive pygmy did was he shared his Lord Soul, his Dark Soul, with the rest of his children who would go on to become humanity. So every single human being in the Dark Souls universe has an aspect of that Dark Soul within them as part of the pygmy's way of sharing his power. And then you'll find that Gwyn actually does share some of his power with a few characters to kind of help him, garner more power and more control over the world, which brings up the next point is Gwyn resents the everlasting dragons for their what he perceives as their chokehold on the world, because the dragons represent static nothingness of nothing's changing, nothing's going on, it's just barely existing. And so he has a representation of, like, this change in the world, so he wants to bring about this change and go against the natural order of things where he doesn't want the dragons to be on top. So he and the other Lord Soul Bearers, as they are called in game, Nito and the Witch, lead a giant revolt against the everlasting dragons. And Ray, you posted this GIF before, but yeah, that is exactly how this war goes.
Wow.
So, but how did Gwyn know to use lightning against the everlasting dragons, you might wonder? Well, remember Seath the Scaleless and how he resented not being immortal like his dragon cousins?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
He turns traitor.
He's a race traitor.
He is a race traitor of the worst kind, and he actually spilled the secrets to the Lord Soul Bearers how to kill the everlasting dragons, and using lightning. Lightning is what peels back their scales. That is that divine power that is able to kill them. And in game, all three Dark Souls games, that is any dragon enemy, be it like a regular enemy or even a boss creature, that's what they're weak to. And so Seath joins in the slaughter, and mind the caption, but in this GIF, you can just see him on top of a mountain of bodies of dragons that he killed himself.
Wow.
Wait, hang on. How did he kill dragons if he's like scaleless and blind?
Well, he in lore, he is called the grandfather of sorcery. He learned how to affect soul energy, and because in the Dark Souls universe, magic, unlike in Warhammer where it's controlled by winds of magic, in Dark Souls magic is controlled by, it is called sorcery, and you're able to channel like your soul, your willpower, kind of like chi in Dragon Ball Z, if you're familiar with that. You have a way of manipulating that energy into different maneuvers, like summoning like a bolt of energy or shielding yourself from other magical attacks, different things like that. So Seath used this knowledge to basically get the other Lord bearers to attack the dragons. He uses his sorcery to also attack the dragons. Dragons are somewhat weak to magic and sorcery, but not compared to lightning. So there are other ways to kill the dragons, but the primary way was through lightning. So that's the War of the Dragons, as it is come to be known. And of course, the dragons lose, rip, but they put up one.
Sad for that's my homies.
Yep, they put up one hell of a fight. Because there was actually a character, and I told you about this one. His name is Hawkeye Goff. He actually made a comment that said, "For every dragon that we slain, 70 of our own troops did we lose." They put up a pretty big fight.
Right.
Yeah, but like 70, like is that like 3 guys, or is like that 3 hosts?
I think more in terms of hosts.
Okay, I mean that's not a bad trade off. Like humans breed like fucking rats.
Yeah.
Like,
you got to consider too, these guys that were fighting were not necessarily humans. Everyone under association of Gwen, the Witch of Izalith, and Nito, they're not human. They were like a level of, for simplicity's sake, we'll say giants. But that's kind of more what doing a majority of the fighting in the war. However,
can I have a question? Can I ask a question?
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, this might be 2 questions. There might be 2 questions, guys. As one. So when one of these gods, like Gwen and the Witch of Izalith and Nito, when they give like a little bit of their fire, their soul to an individual, and that individual like dies, what happens to the soul that was given? Does it return to the original owner? Like if I give you a part of my soul and you die in battle, does the soul return to me? Like
No.
The power I give you, does that return to me?
So in Dark Souls, of course, this is more like a meta, not necessarily a cop-out, but this is like their way of explaining how you level up and stuff. The currency of Dark Souls is literally souls. And not all souls are created equal. So think of like, so think of this in terms of like, moose bucks. So like we get into a fight, we get into like an honor duel or something, and then you kill me or whatnot, and then you loot me, and you have like, I had like, 10 moose bucks on me or something like that. Well, if you go fight the next guy, he might have 100 moose bucks on him, kind of like that. So the more powerful an individual, the more souls that they are worth. So you can infer that these Lord souls are so strong and so powerful, like they're worth so much, like hundreds of thousands, millions. Numbers aren't exact, but you can gather.
Like they're so big, the numbers don't matter at that point.
Yes, basically. And so to also answer that question of where does the soul go when it dies, it gets absorbed by the person who kills that enemy.
Oh, that explains it.
Yeah. So you remember how like you killed a bunch of the I'm trying to how far you've gotten. So okay, remember those knights that you were fighting on the steps up to An Orlando, the cathedral? And then
they were super fun. I wanted their armor.
Oh yeah. They're very cool. And they're the main soldiers for Gwen. But
those were his main soldiers?
Those were his main soldiers. He does have black knights, but they're special and they're a lot more harder to kill. Anyways, but then when you kill in battle, you get like a huge number of souls, right? That's how their essence, that is absorbed by you. So in game, that's how you level up. That's how you get stronger and whatnot and everything.
Yeah.
Whenever you were asking what happens to the Gwen leaves a part of his soul to somebody else, that just gets absorbed by whoever kills that boss character, basically.
And then Gwen just kills him after and gets his soul back and interest.
Yeah, you could think of it.
Yeah,
like
actually, that could happen.
Yeah, you could think of it like that. Especially interesting of note. Gwen is the only one to have actually split off part of his soul and given it to other boss characters. To my knowledge, Nito and the Witch of Izalith have not done that. Memory serves me correct in game. But yeah. But now, with the dragons gone, there is only one left that we know of. He is the everlasting dragon of Ash Lake. And that's what he looks like in game.
Dun.
He has
Very interesting.
He has that ancient, fuzzy, almost stone-like appearance, but you can tell time has worn down on him quite a bit, and he's nowhere near as big as like what as what the dragons are portrayed in the opening
Yeah.
cinematic. So he's just kind of hiding out in Ash Lake to basically just keep his head down, essentially. So
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I'm assuming, given the location we're currently in, Ash Lake is pretty secluded from like the rest of the world.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that he just hides.
Yep.
Like
He
he's resting basically, because like, where are you gonna fucking hide from Gwen and his forests? Well, the dark forest where there's no one to ever find you. Just keep your head down.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of
I'm
that's what
Ooh.
Ash Lake kind of looks like in game. That's where we are currently.
Wow.
But people, there's also again, I'm going to say there's a lot of speculation, because that's the main thing with Dark Souls lore, is because it's so vague in the storytelling, because like every bit of information that you glean about what's going on in the story is gathered through like item descriptions, maybe a few sentences that are said by NPCs and other characters, because there is very little dialogue in the game itself. So everything you can glean is from different item descriptions, but the interesting part is sometimes it's contradictory.
Say what?
Not in a bad writing sense, but like sometimes it is deliberately made to be contradictory, so then that makes you think what's true, okay, who is right, and what's the truth in what I'm learning about.
Well, they're very clever about the way they write it, because you'll collect an item from a certain faction or soldier type that's allied to a certain faction in the world, and it will say something in relation to another character, and you'll think that you've learned more about them, but then you'll go to that faction or a different faction, all of a sudden you'll have a different perspective on the same subject, you know? And the
It's
way that
very
they write it,
Skyrim, Elder Scrolls like.
yes,
Yeah,
the
that's a
way
good way
they
to put
write
it.
it is that it's genuinely like ancient history. You know what I mean? Like a historian would write down something in his own opinion or his own interpretation of it and say it like it's fact, or just say directly, I think this is what it is, so that's what I'll go with. You know? So fact, it's very like everything is canon, nothing is true.
Yeah, pretty much kind of like Warhammer canon.
Yeah.
Or 40K canon. Let me redirect.
Yeah.
That's kind of how. So again, with all the speculation is, some folks are of the opinion that Ash Lake is kind of sort of close to how the world originally looked before the Age of Fire came about. And it's just in this hidden little pocket of the world that just escaped Gwen's notice and the other Lord Bearers. So
Yeah.
So after the dragons lose the rebellion, lose the war, here comes the Age of Fire, where now the gods rule the world, and Gwyn is sitting himself all nice and pretty like on top of his great castle of Anor Londo, which looks like this in the original Dark Souls game.
You've got mail.
So now that you've seen, Ray, what Anor Londo looked like in Dark Souls 3 pales in comparison to what it looked like in its heyday of the original Dark Souls.
Right.
Definitely.
So that's
Kind of sad, but I like it.
Yep. But and everything is great. The gods rule the world. The humans are around. They're doing their thing. They're providing their worship, and it's just everything's all dandy. Here's the problem, though. This is a dark fantasy. We can't have nice things. So that fire, that first flame that started this whole disparity in the first place, it begins to get weaker. It begins to, as fires do, they keep on going. You got to have a fuel source. So if you don't have a fuel source, it starts to get weaker. As it gets weaker, that's where Gwyn, the other soul bearers, begin to feel this. And well, what happens when the lights go out? It gets dark. Gwyn, being a bearer of the soul of the Lord's Soul of Light, he freaks the hell out and doesn't want this to happen. So he's afraid of the dark. as childish as that sounds, he's afraid of the dark, and he's aware of the potential that humanity has, because he senses that dark soul within each and every single one of them. So he and the other Lord Soul Bearers, minus the Furtive Pygmy, because he just kind of, after he's mentioned as getting one of the Lord Souls, he just dips out from the rest of the story. So we don't know what happens to him until Dark Souls 3. Anyways, Gwyn and the other Lord Soul bearers are trying to figure out how can we keep this first flame going so that way we don't lose our power. Like that way we keep back to our order of things where we're the ones on top, which is kind of ironic considering he was rebelling against the natural order of things with the dragons. But I digress. So this is going on for about 1,000. Like we don't know how long these things last. We don't know how much time passes between different iterations of Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3. For ultra simplicity's sake, I'm just going to give like a roundabout 1,000 years. So like 1,000 years from when Gwyn and the other Lord Bearers win the war, they're ruling high and mighty, and then the first flame starts to fade after about that 1,000 years. Again, this is not an exact amount, but just to make everything simple for everybody. So,
no, this is gospel. It's absolute fact.
my word is the gospel, and I tell you, you shall believe me. Anyways.
Indubitably.
Yep. Well, as it turns out, Nito does not give one crap about the first flame, and he just dips out and does his own thing because he's the first of the dead. He's all about death. Death, baby. Bring it on. Bring it on. It's kind of like he's kind of like Hades in that he really only cares about his job, and that's all he does. It's just like he doesn't do anything he doesn't do anything actively work against your character in game until you come to meet him as a boss character. And that's just him defending himself, essentially. So.
Yeah, I was just about to say, until you come in and mess with his office, he does not give a crap about you. As long as you're not within his little bubble and his space, he doesn't care.
Yep. And that's the other very interesting thing about Dark Souls, like the Dark Souls universe, is like just like what you were mentioning, Brody, about like it has that different perspective on things as you learn more about the lore. As you learn more about these boss characters, like you see giant skeleton in like a shadowy cloak. Oh my God, kill it, kill it, kill it. But then like as we just mentioned, like he's just minding his own damn business. It's like you're the one that's going into his chambers and killing him for his Lord Soul. Like, who's the real bad guy here?
Mm-hmm. That's one of those big moments through storytelling of like the natural mechanics of the game. That if you really think about the implications of that, you gotta start questioning if your purpose is really the good guys. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And like, there's
go
ahead.
It also raises another question that makes into Skyrim with all these like contradicting opinions. But in Skyrim, people who don't know, Alduin, the world leader, he's basically meant to be like the Fenrir or the Jörmungandr, where he is meant to destroy the planet. But he chooses to not destroy the planet and simply chooses to rule over it. And in canon, the Dragonborn is meant to slay Alduin. And you think, oh, you're meant to protect Skyrim, you're meant to protect the world. But really, if you're created to kill a dragon whose original purpose is to destroy the world, but he's not fulfilling his purpose and is deviating from his purpose, and your job is to kill him when he deviates, are you actually saving the world, or are you actually trying to ensure the destruction of the world? Like, are you, by killing Alduin and saving the world from tyranny, inadvertently ensuring that the next time he comes back, he destroys the world?
Right.
So it raises that really cool, like...
It feeds back into the cycle. Like, everything...
Yeah. It's like, I'm meant to counter you, and then me countering you then cancels that out, and I have to come back. You know what I mean? Like, you keep countering each other over and over again until one of you gives up the cycle.
Yeah.
That also... Sorry, I keep cutting you off. That also makes me think of the good Wheel of Time books. Not the show. Fuck the show, but the books are good.
Right.
Where... have you guys read the book? Read the series?
I've never read the series. I've wanted to get into it. I did see the show. I liked it okay, but because I don't have that context of what's in the books and how much better they are compared to the show.
I have like all of them. I can send you them if you want.
Buddy, you know how much that's going to be? You know how much that's going to be in shipping?
I don't fucking care. But Brody, have you read the books?
I've heard only good things, but sadly I haven't gotten my hands on them yet.
Okay. Well, to make it as brief as possible and kind of spoilery, but not really, the main antagonist of the series has a similar concept to that, where it's okay, you can defeat me a million times, that's fine, but all I have to do is win once. And
Mhm.
it creates this concept of, okay, well, is it even worth fighting? Like, are we
Yeah.
by fighting perpetuating endless war and endless suffering? Wouldn't it make more sense just to join the bad guy, let him
Yeah.
succeed of bulldozing the world, and just ending the suffering there? Or should we perpetuate, or should we continue fighting and perpetuate the cycle? And I think that's
Yeah.
such a cool way to like get people on your side when you realize that you can't win, or
Oh,
rather when the good
totally.
guys realize they can't win, that the only option that matters, the only option that means anything is to join them. And I think
Yeah.
that's a cool concept.
Oh
Mhm.
no, totally. I mean, last note, I don't mean to continue to derail your episode. I'm sorry, Joel. But
How dare you?
that's I'm sorry. I'll go to the shame corner after I'm done.
Shame.
Parthenax. You know that first conversation with Parthenax right away, where he asks you like, why do you want to defeat Alduin? And you're like, well, I want to save the world. And he's like, would it not be better to maybe let this world die so that the next one can be born? You know, and you kind of have these options of like, oh, maybe it is, or like the other dialogue option is something like, well, I like this world. I don't want it to die, so I'm going to fight for it. You know, and
Yeah,
Parthenax is like, fair enough. Good, I mean, that's a good enough reason. You know,
yeah. I think it's
it's just
fun
this,
because it raises the question. It also raises the
yeah,
question of, do you prevent? Like, it also raises the moral question of, do you let this world live and deny another world from being born?
yeah,
Like,
exactly,
are you like like using a politically charged statement? Are you aborting another world to keep yours
right,
going?
right,
And
right,
it's a cool concept.
And that's a concept that Dark Souls also does really, really well because
absolutely,
as you've come to find out with like all these endings and like the different sides to every argument to every piece of lore, it's kind of like, what's the right answer? Well, that's just it. There really is no right answer. It's what you make of it.
right,
So do you continue the age of fire? Do you, because it's the world that you've known? That's Gwen
mm-hmm,
sure as hell thought that. Or do you let it die so you can, just like what in Skyrim, like, do you just let this die so something new and maybe something better can come from it? Who knows?
right.
That's the mystery of the unknown. So,
Dark Souls is one of those few games where all of the options feel right and wrong depending on your perspective.
mhm.
And like the quote unquote bad ending where you end the world is actually doesn't sound that bad. I mean, at least for me, from my perspective, when I play through the game and collect the lore and everything, the gods suck. Gwyn sucks. You know what I mean? Like the
Oh,
four lords
we haven't
suck.
even gotten to the shit that Gwen has done. But
I'm not even going to get into it so that you can spearhead that, Gerald,
oh
because I'm
yes,
excited for that part of the episode. But
oh
they all
yes.
suck. So the thought of letting it all pass away, and it's like almost, I don't view it as like a bad guy thing almost. It's more like a self sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Like this world is dying and decaying. And if I spur the flame on, I'm just going to return power to the gods for them to sit above us humans that they treat like shit for the next 1,000 years until they need to sacrifice one of us again. So why not tear it all down so that we can all lie dormant and from the ashes something better might come out? You know,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. So there's
See, for me, I don't believe in that. For me, I choose to take the power into my own hands and rule everything.
and
Self-proclaimed anarchist leader.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah.
you.
And I forgot to post this picture earlier. But Ray, remember you said Gwen kind of looks like an asshole.
Yeah,
Here's an AI generated image of him that really just kind of amps that assholeness up of him.
he looks very much. I honestly really like the art of this. This was actually like obviously it's AI generated art, but like there's something about the way that it's designed that speaks so much more. Like the
Mm-hmm.
fact that like a third of his body is like obscured in shadow, one of his eyes is like missing, and then the other side of the image is like lit in flames. This is actually really awesome art, and I feel like
Yeah.
like similar to what Brody was saying about how the furtive pygmy, like the picture is like worth 10 words. I think this picture like speaks like like hundreds. Because like
Thousands.
you put a title on this thing, like a book cover, and it immediately like makes you want to read it. Like I don't know, called The Lost King or something. And then
Right.
it's like, what? That sound like it raises like the. Obviously, I'm just gloating about AI imaging, but like it looks really well done.
Yeah, I agree.
So, for the sake of expediency, because we've already been at this like an hour, and we're not even past the primer yet. So, yeah,
Oh Lord.
fun times, right? So basically, it's just up to Gwyn and the Witch of Islith. He's trying to figure out what are we supposed to do about the first flame? Like, how do we keep it from dying? How do we keep it from losing our power, from losing our place on the top of the food chain? Nito just dips out. He does not give a fuck. Like, let me do my own thing. I'm just gonna sleep in my coffin. Bye bye, bitches. Peace out. A-Town down.
A true vibe.
Yes, indeed. So the Witch of Islith gets an idea of using her Lord Soul of Life to go back to to basically try and ignite her own first flame. That goes about as well as you'd expect, given each of the 4 Lord Souls is a part of the first flame. So it's just like it's like trying to drive a car with only like 2 wheels and maybe the car battery. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So the Witch of Islith is famous, and she is, I think, in lore, she is known as the founder of pyromancy, or of chaos pyromancy. So basically, like your fire-based powers and whatnot, that is the founder of that. That's why pyromancy is considered something different to sorcery, which is considered something different to divine power, or the power of the gods, which is what Gwyn has. So that's where all these different little, that's the in-game excuse for why you have different abilities and like who they're each associated with. So when the Witch of Islith tries to use her, just her soul, her Lord Soul to ignite her own first flame, it backfires horribly. And it turns her, okay, so she's called the Witch of Islith because that is the name of the city in which she lives, Islith. It is a subterranean kingdom, which I don't have a picture of. If Brody, if you want to look for one while I'm just flapping my gums, go for it. But
I'll get it.
So that's the name of the city in which she lives, and along with her daughters and her son. And the flame engulfs all of Islith, chars, burns everything badly, but because of the magic, or because of the inherent ability of this soul of life, it twists her ability to create children. It twists everything around Islith. Yeah, that's a picture of what it looks like after the disaster that is her lighting the first flame.
Yeah, just for a little bit of context, when you discover the location in the game, it's called Lost Islith because of the catastrophe, as if the city and the god itself has been lost to the chaos.
Cool.
And okay, so
Here's a better in-game image.
It's
like dark and void and
just
soulless.
Run down, which, I mean, that's a running theme across the entire Dark Souls trilogy. Anyways, it's like everything is decay and to just a Anyways.
One thing I would like to say is that this reminds me of the darkness, like when the flame goes out. It's as if her flame went out, and once the city was lost, you notice how it just gets darker and gloomier until eventually the darkness wins, or the god returns.
Yep. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, the Witch of Islith is still around, but she doesn't exist the way that you saw in the first picture that I posted. Instead, she became this. It is called the Bed of Chaos. And so that's what amplifies like her pyromancy powers, and because she's still in possession of the Lord Soul of Life, she is able to give birth to horrible demonic creatures and chaos demons. So back to Warhammer, because everything somehow goes back to Warhammer with us.
It all leads back to him.
It all leads back to him. So this is one of the bosses that you do end up fighting in game, and this also continues that theme of that Dark Souls is famous for, of like nothing lasts forever, things are going to decay, and what links are you going to go to to keep with what you know. Obviously, for the Witch of Izalith, it ended horribly for her. And the son that I mentioned that she had, he was, if I remember correctly, born malformed and oozing sores of not just pus, but like lava, like burning lava is oozing from like open sores on all over his body, and he is in constant pain. Two of her 7 daughters are I don't know if you can see it from the picture, but there are 2 like pillars kind of like to each side of her that act as like a barrier. Those are 2 of her daughters that were mutated into basically stone, serving that's holding up those pillars as like her protection against attack or whatnot. Her boss fighting game is an absolute bitch, and it is more of like an endurance test than it actually is like a straight up brute force fight. Like just fair warning if you ever do get around to playing Dark Souls. But so yeah, that's 2 of her sisters. 2 of her daughters. 2 more daughters end up getting fused to spider demons. So think like the Little Mermaid. You have like beautiful female upper half, fish tail or whatnot. That's kind of like this beautiful female upper body and a giant ugly ass spider demon for legs.
That's a bit of a mood killer.
Yep. Brody, I'll leave that up to you to find that, because I have dragons to talk about that we're desperately trying to get to. So yeah, that is what happens to the Witch of Izalith. And she births chaos demons, and they are wreaking havoc all over the world because chaos demons, they're chaotic. Who'da thunk?
What?
So Gwyn takes up a bunch of his silver knights, which that forms like the backbone of his army. And they try to fight these demons back because they're encroaching on his turf, and Orlando. And some of these knights get burned very badly in the process, and they become what we know as the Black Knights. So as Brody just pictured, that is one of the daughters with the spider lower body.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and by the way, for copy the right image. God, I'll get back to you with Ceaseless Discharge, which is the name of the son.
That's that's the son. He is literally called Ceaseless Discharge.
Wow.
Yeah, no, he's not having a good time of it, guys.
He is not having a good time. The other daughters are, as we to our knowledge, okay. Like they look human. They have they wear like black robes. Oh yeah, that's the son. That's Ceaseless Discharge. So
he's a little grumpy, to say the least.
Yeah.
Poor dude.
That's the tragedy of, and he is massive too.
Yeah. He's actually there's this here. You can kind of see a reference of a player standing in front of him in the distance. Like he's huge.
Oh.
So that's the tragedy of the Witch of Izalith and what happens when she tries to bring back the first flame. So after Gwyn fights off the chaos demons and basically kind of limits them back to their own turf of Lost Izalith, a few of them do escape and kind of it's kind of like chaos demons kind of popping out through the warp gates at the North and South Pole. So there are still some that do run around, but for the most part they're confined to that area. So after Gwyn does that, he figures, okay, I don't have many other options left. The first flame is dying. I don't want to lose what power I have left. So I'm going to take my Lord's soul. I'm going to take all the souls that I have gathered over my experience. I'm going to throw myself into the first flame and basically sacrifice myself to keep the first flame going as long as possible. So that is exactly what he does. He journeys with some silver knights and goes to the kiln of the first flame, offers himself as sacrifice to the first flame to keep it going, and boom, that lights everything up, but he turns to ash and dust and cinders.
Sunlight for life. And
so do all of the knights that go with him. and they all turn to ash and dust. When you go to the kiln of the first flame in the game, like you see like ghosts of the knights that joined him just kind of walking by, walking around. It's very eerie. And so Gwyn,
very cool,
the strongest of the Lord Soul Bearers, or the most outspoken, is reduced from this great Lord of Sunlight and Lightning and just a very angry looking Odin Zeus mixture to this,
the Lord of Cinder.
Because even though I said he has turned to ash and dust and whatnot, he is still technically alive, serving as kindling for the first flame, burning forever and ever.
I need to say something. After this episode, I need to talk to you like fast about Bleach, because there's so many like reference. Either like Bleach probably stole a lot of inspiration from Dark Souls.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I guarantee they probably took notes off of each other. And if you know anything about Berserk, Dark Souls takes huge anything by FromSoft takes huge inspiration from Berserk. Like
I had Guts and Sword.
Endless.
Yeah, like I can send y'all a video like after we're done recording of all the references that can be made between all of the games. But anyways,
I don't know Berserk, but Gerald will send me images of like something from a Dark Souls or FromSoft game, or sorry, a Berserk manga, and I'll go, wait a minute, I've seen that.
Like the Beast of Darkness.
Yeah.
So anyways, all of this setup and backstory to finally get us to where we are today.
Well, it's about time.
We are still in the Age of Fire. Gwyn sacrificed himself to keep the first flame going, so we are still in the Age of the Gods. We're still in the world that they created. So one more thing before we finally get to talking about dragons. I know we were going on about this forever, but because Dark Souls is very confusing if you don't if you don't
lay the foundation right.
Yeah, if you don't lay the foundation right, you are just going to be so lost. So that's why we spent a good chunk of time trying to set this all up, because all of it plays a part into what we end up talking about later on in the episode. So to go back to one of the asshole-ish things that Gwyn does is, so remember when I said that he's afraid of the dark, that he fears that innate potential that humanity has with its collective dark soul?
Mm-hmm.
What he does is, right before he sacrifices himself to the flame, he puts what's called, in Dark Souls 3, he calls it a brand of fire around, like within the soul of every human being. And in Dark Souls 1, this brand of fire is called the Dark Sign. So he basically set it up to where if the first flame begins to die again, humanity will suffer the curse of the Dark Sign, which that brand of fire ignites in their dark soul, and they are now immortal. So you think like, oh, they're immortal. That's a good thing, right? Wrong. Humanity has, a typical human lifespan, 70, 80, 90, 100 years, or, so give or take if you're really genetically gifted. But the problem is, it's kind of like, to take this to Age of Sigmar, it's kind of like the Stormcast Eternals. You can die. You can be killed. Every time you die, you come back. But the problem is, you lose a piece of you every single time you come back. And because of how dangerous the world of Dark Souls is, you're going to be dying a lot. So all those deaths, plus all those pieces of you that you lose every single time, it saps that humanity within you. It makes you less of a being. So the more you come back, the more zombie-like you become. The more emaciated, the more just decayed you look. So that is where the concept of hollowing comes from in the game. Is when you die, like Ray, you're a 5'9" elven bard. Yes, fit as an ox or whatnot. You know how to swing a sword. You're good with an arrow. You're good with a warpstone staff or whatever. Oh no, you get killed, but you get stabbed in the neck by a Skaven. Okay, you have the curse of the dark sign. You come back, but then you're a little bit less. Like, yeah, you're a little bit, maybe you're a little bit skinnier, maybe you feel a little bit weaker or whatnot. Oh no, here comes an ogre, bites your head off. Okay, poof, you come back, but now you're a little bit less, and a little bit less. Every time you die, there's a little bit less of you to come back. This eventually gets to folks, and when you hollow, that is essentially the game's way of saying you have completely lost your mind, you have completely lost your sanity. Now you're just like an aimless zombie, just like walking about the earth with no purpose anymore in life at all.
Yeah.
That's where hollowing comes in. That's why literally everything is out to get you, and like all the human-sized creatures that you fight, the humans, that's why they all just look like disgusting, emaciated zombies. That is all thanks to the dark sign that Gwyn just so lovingly gave us when he sacrificed himself to the first flame. Asshole.
Around.
All right. So, on to the first Dark Souls game. And now we can finally talk about dragons. Thank you. So in the first Dark Souls game, well, again, for simplicity's sake, we'll just say another 1,000 years have passed. The Age of Fire is still going, but guess what? The first flame is beginning to die again. And so now the curse of the dark sign is beginning to show up in humanity, and there are a bunch of undead walking the earth, going hollow and crazy and insane with how dangerous the world is.
Yeah.
So
like Gwyn's reluctance to let go of the flame when he sacrificed himself caused that curse to spread around the world. Yes. So whenever the flame starts to die out, like everything gets so much worse. Yes. So much worse. So I think it's also a way to kind of force people to keep the flame going and want to keep it going to further serve the gods rather than let the next age come.
And you also got to consider too, like, you spent your whole life worshiping this god. Like, he's given you light, quote unquote. He's, built these great vast cities and protected you against chaos demons. So it's just like these millennia of just indoctrination is like, you don't know anything. Like, if you're just like a regular human blacksmith, like, you don't know anything else. You don't know.
Right.
Like, it could be so much better for you to let the first flame die. Like, for all you know, if the first flame dies, so do you. Everything goes black.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So like when the undead curse starts to spread, then it's like, oh, Lord Gwyn needs our help. You know what I mean? Like his power's fading, so we need to help the gods so that they can protect us,
So that's where we are at this point in the game. The Age of Fire is once again is at risk again. 1,000, we'll just say 1,000 years after Gwyn sacrificed himself. So who's gonna help bring it about? That's where you come in as the player. You are what's called the chosen undead, and and apparently there's a prophecy that you'll be the one to take Gwyn's place and keep the Age of Fire going, or will you?
Yep. That
leads to the quote unquote moral choice of the game. But now that we finally had all that set up, let's talk about some other fucking dragons. So, this being the Age of Fire, the everlasting dragons, with the exception of the one from Ash Lake that I mentioned, they're all extinct. However, there are some offshoots. They have, they have some genetically different cousins, which are, they're called dragons too, as far as like the in-game file, but technically they would be like what your real life wyverns would be. So like think like the Game of Thrones dragons, 2 legs, 2 wings, that sort of thing. That would be a wyvern in Dark Souls lore. So they are technically not considered a true dragon, quote unquote.
Right. Well, isn't it the case that the dragon in the Ash Lake, he's a stone dragon like the everlasting dragons, but he's a lot smaller, like you mentioned before, and he's like worn down. Isn't he a descendant of the original dragons? Like, not to be super nitpicky, but you get what I'm saying? Like, he's not the same, and he's not on the same power level, right?
I mean, the dragons come in different shapes and sizes. Like, on the whole, like the original everlasting dragons were huge, but Seath, like, and that genetic, holy crap, what is he? He's still technically part of that everlasting dragon group. So I'm not the lore expert. I'm not Vatsy Vidya or Ashen Hollow, but
It's been a minute since I've played. It's just that I can't remember what like planted that thought in my head. But I was wondering, is he an everlasting dragon or is he a descendant? But he's the closest thing we have either way, you know? So he's in the everlasting dragon group, and then everyone else is like a wyvern or a half breed or like a lesser mutation.
Yeah. So like again, like what we call dragons that show up in the Dark Souls games are technically not true dragons because they don't have the 4 legs, 4 wings, the stone scales, and all of that. But they're called dragons on the list. We're just gonna stick with that for simplicity's sake. So the Ash Lake Dragon, to our knowledge, he's one of the last of the everlasting dragons. So I'm gonna stick with that for the purposes of this episode.
Me too.
There are some true dragons that do live on, or that do show up, but they are more undead, or they show up as undead dragons.
Undead is in like Curse of the Undead, or like risen through other means.
So I actually asked this question a couple of times in like the Dark Souls groups that I was in, and apparently anybody, like once the Curse of the Dark Sign shows up, anybody is susceptible to hollowing. So you can kind of infer that not just humans can go hollow, or not just humans can be undead, but so can the dragons. So can Gwyn. As you may or may not have seen in his like Lord of Cinder picture, he kind of has that decayed look about him. Like his eyes are just like so far sunk in the back of his head. Like he looks like a typical hollow that you would fight in the game, but obviously it's scaled to him. So that's a picture of an undead dragon, and you do fight a couple of these in the game. They're fairly difficult. One interesting standout is there is a level where you're in a kind of like a snowy castle, and near the end of the level, there's this long bridge to a tower that you need to get to. That's the exit. Well, there's an undead dragon sitting on that bridge. Well, as you step onto the bridge, he wakes up. He sees you, and he starts to charge at you. But the problem is, because he's an undead dragon, like he doesn't have full function of his body anymore. So he's clawing his way towards you. He ends up ripping himself in half and leaving his back half on the end of the bridge. And then he's just him on his 2 front legs, just like charging towards you. And so that's like, if you're not expecting that, that's just like, holy shit, what the hell, you know?
Yeah. It leaves a very strong impression.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and of course, like them being dragons, like fire is their typical breath weapon. Man, I didn't mention that because I thought it'd be obvious, but with undead dragons, that fire breath has changed into just straight up poison and toxicity because of the amount of decay that they have suffered over however long they've been dead. That is undead dragons. They are like mini bosses, kind of. They are like, they show up in their spot once, and once you kill them in game, they don't resurrect, which you'll find in Dark Souls. Like you've played Dark Souls 3, like when you kill an enemy, once you either die and come back, or you settle out a bonfire or whatnot, which is like your checkpoint, all the enemies that you killed pop up and come back to life. When it comes to mini bosses, they don't do that. These guys, they stay dead. And same thing with bosses. So
you think that's an in-game representation of the Curse of the Undead?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So if the dragons don't come back, is it like I remember I was just reading up on the dragons while I was looking for like images, and this seems to suggest that the dragons are like, it's the corpses literally deteriorating, but the dragons were such powerful primordial creatures that it's like their corpses still have a little remainder of their power until you fully finish it off, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like a small lingering piece of the soul remains in the corpse itself until you kill it, and then it doesn't come back because maybe the Curse of the Undead doesn't affect it, but maybe I'm just inferring too much from the mechanics, you know?
Yeah, and there is a thing about the mechanics too, that it's another kind of theory that like you can, in fact, even though you're hollowing, you can in fact suffer true death, which is like, once you hollow or whatnot, you've lost all your sense of purpose. You've lost your mind completely. And so as far as the lore, when you die in that state, that is your permanent death. Which
Yeah.
that's the game mechanic way of explaining why bosses don't come back, why mini bosses don't come back,
Okay.
after you kill them.
That's
So it
pretty
might just be completely hollowed is another
Yeah.
way to interpret that.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's the undead dragons. Like I said, there's maybe like two of them that you fight in the game. One's on a cliff edge, which is very interesting. But the real standout is the one that like is so gung ho for you. He charges and just rips himself in half to chase
Yeah.
you on a bridge. Speaking of bridges, there's those wyvern cousins that we were talking about, and one mini boss is called it's called the Hellkite Drake, and this is what he looks like in game. You can see like the player character in relation to how big he is.
Oh, that son of a bitch.
And that is another thing. Like that is another thing that if you don't expect it, oh, it's gonna get you. Because
I hated him, dude.
Because there's another bridge that you walk across in a level, and like everything looks fine or whatnot, and all of a sudden, just like a wall of fire just whoosh comes at you from behind. That's him flying overhead and kiting you with his flame breath.
Yeah.
Again,
You got a bunch of souls on you, you're happy, you're exploring a new area, and then what's that sound? Complete, utter napalm erases you from existence. It's like,
Wait,
oh,
I've
great,
actually
I can
seen
never
this
get
boss
those souls
fight.
back.
I've seen
love the
this
smell of
boss
napalm in
fight.
the
I haven't
morning.
done it, but I've seen it.
Yep. He's one of the first. He is actually one of the first mini bosses you find in the game.
Yeah.
An important and interesting thing to note in the first Dark Souls game, Dark Souls 2 and 3 don't do this, but there is this. If you cut the tail off of a dragon, you can actually claim a very special weapon. In the case of the Hellkite dragon, if you find a way to cut off his tail, most of the times it's a dragon weapon. But there are some other special weapons that you can get to depending on who we talk about. With the Hellkite dragon, you get what's called the Drake sword, and that's what this looks like.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool sword.
Oh yeah, and and I will say for an early game weapon, try as best as you can to get that because that will carry you through a good chunk of the game until you get something better.
Huge. That's a huge development for early game, dude.
So that's the Hellkite dragon. He basically kites you from a bridge, and you got to be careful about where you are. You got to figure out how to cheese him and whatnot. And he will go down. He's very tough, which you can say that about any enemy in Dark Souls. So
yeah, that's one thing. No matter what level you are, no matter how far in the game you are, no matter how good you are, if you let your guard down, any enemy from the most fodder type enemy can kill you.
You serious?
So that's the Hellkite Drake, one of the first dragons that you see in the game. So now let's get to our first dragon boss. Ray, you mentioned something about a vagina-looking monster at the beginning of the episode. Ray? Crap, did he pass out on warpstone?
No!
No, Ray!
I didn't pass out on warpstone. What the fuck are you talking about? I don't pass out. I just ride the high until the next high. But you want to repeat that? There was not warpstone in my mustache. I was making me sneeze like a fucker that made me have to mute myself. No, not at all.
So you said there was like I think you described it as like a vagina-looking monster at the beginning of our episode.
Hang on. Okay, sorry.
Actually, hang on. I'll be right back.
I've been needing to piss for the past 40 minutes. Okay. I'll be right back.
Oh, that's what I just finished doing.
Anyway.
Okay.
So vagina monster.
Yeah, we'll wait till Brady comes back.
Okay.
Well, guys, I just put out the first flame with how long that took. Jesus Christ. Okay.
But I'm ready. I'm here.
Okay, so
I'm done sneezing my brains out. Yes. Vagina monster.
So the what you call the vagina monster, that, my friend, is called the gaping dragon. Now,
Oh my god.
that is his head. It looks cute, doesn't it? Yeah, it
Oh no.
it kind of makes you want to have one as a pet, right? He is one of the
Little
Oh, God.
alligator.
Yeah, to our knowledge, he's one of the original. He actually is another living everlasting dragon, but with a twist.
Mm-hmm.
He was an everlasting dragon that also escaped notice of Gwyn. I mean, you'll find this happens. You'll find this happens a lot. However, this particular dragon was, after the war, he was just ravenous and hungry, and so he just kept on eating. But unlike Grecius, who just had such a nice glorified paunch, this dragon kept on eating and eating, and through one way or another, eventually cursed to just be constantly hungry. And so his body morphed to address that hunger. And his in-game model has like a nice little pot belly, but his mouth mutated into this. So basically, like, he has the head,
Wow.
but like his entire rib cage and spine just open up into one giant mouth. That is that is your first dragon boss in the game. The gaping dragon.
That's pretty sick.
Mm-hmm. And just like what I talked about with the Hellkite dragon, when you cut off, you can cut off his tail if you're very lucky, and you get for him what is called the
Dragon King.
Great Axe.
There you go.
Boom.
Holy fuck.
That's the same exact face I made when I got it.
Mhm. Too bad it requires a shit ton of like in-game strength to be able to wield it. But man,
Strength builds are on top.
I unga, therefore I bunga.
Exactly. Imagine that's what destroys the gods and rules as a primordial being. Unga bunga.
Okay, you want to know something funny? Any enemies that are associated with Gwyn that have the power of lightning, they have a weakness to dark energy, and dark is an element that you can imbue in certain weapons in the game if you have the right tools. Now, again, I'm not going to go over the mechanics of the game, because that's just like even way beyond me. But when you explore Anor Londo in the first game, you go into one of a basement area, and there's a chest that has like hidden items or whatnot of someone that's supposedly against the gods. You can actually access a dark infused club. I unga, therefore I bunga.
I love that that's how he plans to overthrow the gods. Just the club.
So
That's pretty cool, though.
yeah.
It is.
I like that, though. He just has a club ready.
And
Amen.
so where you find the gaping dragon, as it looks like a dingy kind of wet area, you're in an area of the world called the depths, which is basically the sewer system. So that's all the refuse, all the unwanted critters and people or whatnot of the area above. This is where that dragon ends up lurking, and that's where he gets most of his meals from, and that's probably why he looks the way he does.
Yeah. It's I'd almost infer that as like the decay is worsened by the sewers and everything. So like his body just continued to mutate, and he ate more and more putrid things, and he just continued to mutate onwards in a downward spiral.
So,
I don't know if that's exact canon, but that's my conjecture. Actually, wait, no. With utter confidence, this is scripture. Thank you, Miyazaki.
there you go. Praise be, praise be.
Hey, I know. Oh.
Okay, so that was the gaping dragon, the big, toothy, gluttonous monster that he is. But, yeah. Any questions so far about what we covered?
No, I don't think so. I mean, do you remember what the fight with the gaping dragon was like your first time fighting him in Dark Souls?
Terrified as shit because the dude just got on all six legs and charged me, and I was backed into a corner, so I had no way of escaping. Somehow I survived that charge, and then what he decided to do, he stayed on all fours and decided to throw up on me.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So that was my very first experience with the gaping dragon.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah, no, he was quite the jump scare, man. I mean, I think everyone experiences it their first time playing Dark Souls if they haven't seen the clip. You know, the little alligator head starts rising up out of the water, and then before you know it, you're facing like some eldritch abomination that you literally never saw coming.
Mm-hmm. It's just that's how they get you, man. That's how they get you. So,
Every time.
quick, very, very quick correction. I forgot to show you what drakes look like in game, and let me pull that picture up now. So I showed you the picture of the Hellkite Drake on the bridge. You know, big red or whatnot. Later on in the game, you can actually go to a place called the Valley of Drakes, which is where most of these drakes or dragons are, and that's what they look like. Just Hellkite Drake, but blue and smaller, like maybe about 2 to 3 times the size of your character. Here's the funny thing about these guys, though: they can spew lightning, even though they're weak to lightning or weak-ish to lightning. I never understood why they did that in game, but it's just kind of like,
Yeah, lightning's pretty consistently stated to be like obviously the dragon's weakness, given the history and everything of Gwyn and how he challenged the everlasting dragons and everything. And now that you bring it up, it's a fair point. Like why is he spewing lightning if that's like his people's one major weakness? But you know, I digress.
But I think this also leads
Because
credence
he does
to
what he wants.
maybe. But I think it also leads credence to like what we talked about earlier, in that like these are technically not true dragons. They're like the genetic cousin, so to speak. So I guess my headcanon is that that would explain the that's why they're able to channel lightning, and even though they're still somewhat weak to it, they're not as weak against lightning as like your other dragon enemies. So just wanted to make that quick correction before we go on to the next boss. So, this next boss is a DLC boss. And if you know anything about Dark Souls and their DLC bosses, they are fucking hard. But
I unfortunately wouldn't know.
well, you should be checking your mail sometime soon there, Rayway. Just saying. Cough, cough. Anyways, so, speaking of DLC bosses, this one is probably one of my favorite bosses in the game, even though he's I'll just show him to you first. This, my friend, is Black Dragon Calamite.
Holy shit.
Cyclops, or what is believed to be a Cyclops, glowing red with you can see the glowing red eye in the center. Black scales. He's like true dragon, 4 legs, 2 wings, like all the whole kit and caboodle, and he breathes black fire that deals magic damage. So in the game, you have different weapon types or whatnot. You have different damage types. Anything with like swords, arrows, physical damage. That makes sense. You infuse a weapon with magic energy that does magic damage. You hit your enemy with like a magic spell, also magic damage. And then there's like lightning, fire, depending on what you infuse with. 9 times out of 10, when a dragon uses its fire breath, it's fire damage. That makes sense. But with Calamite here, his breath deals in equal parts fire damage and magic damage. So there is not much you can do to block that. Unless you are really good at dodge rolling.
That's actually really cool, though.
Oh, yeah, and he is very fast, very nimble, and there is actually a way to fight him, because he is technically an optional boss. That's another picture of him. Kind of more full body.
Ooh, I like that picture.
Yeah. So, and if you can actually zoom in very carefully on his face. You see 2 little beady red eyes on the side. Those are actually his true eyes, so he is not really a Cyclops. What that glowing red eye is in the center in his forehead is actually called the Calamity Ring, which is where he gets his name, Calamite, which sounds very similar to Calamity. And
wow,
you do not want. I mean, you get this ring upon killing him, You have no reason to want to wear it unless you are just like the weirdest masochist that would make Slanesh blush. Because wearing this ring doubles the damage that you take in game. In a game where most, even the basic enemies can one-shot you. So, again, why would you want to wear that ring?
Does it give you any benefit besides just making you take more damage?
Absolutely not. No other benefit.
So it literally just boosts the damage you take.
It boosts the damage you take, and that is it.
Miyazaki puts an item like this in every single game, and I know that he just kicks his feet because he knows that there's that 1% of the player base that's insane and always has something to prove to other people that are gonna need to do a playthrough with that ring on, and he's just like, yeah, enjoy it, just make yourself suffer. Like, that's the only reason he puts it in there.
Yeah, pretty much. So, he is one of the, to put things into context, when you're in this DLC, you're actually transported back in time like about 100 years or so. And this was when like Gwen and Orlando, from the Age of Fire is going strong or whatnot, but then there is this seeping of dark energy. There's this seeping of dark because going back to the dark sign and everything. Because what happened is there is a town called Ulasil, and the humans living in that town were tricked into digging, and they dug up a grave. And just like the dwarves from the Mines of Moria, they dug too greedily and too deep. They awakened what is believed to be a primordial human, quote unquote, and that primordial human, basically his dark sign, his dark soul, kind of went wild and went rampant and started devouring the whole place. So this area was that's the main basis of the DLC. And in this DLC, so I think we talked about Dragon Slayer Ornstein before in Anne Orlando. In this DLC, you also meet the other 3 Knights of Gwyn. They're great characters. We will probably cover them in another Dark Souls episode at some point in time. But the most important one right now in regards to the Calamite is Hawkeye Goth. And Brody, if you could help me find a picture of him while I tell the story to Ray.
Hawkeye Goth, you said?
Yes, sir. And you're wandering around the area trying to fight the next boss and whatnot, and you actually run into Calamite on a bridge. He just kind of lands, stares at you, and then flies off. Later on, you can go down like a ravine to like a waterfall area, and then you actually do have the option of fighting him if you so want. But here's the problem. If you go ahead and go fight him without talking to Hawkeye Goth first, he can fly around and then just basically firebomb you from a distance, and you have no way of landing a hit on him. So, you do that a couple of times. This guy right here that Brody just talked about is, and I think I've talked to you about him before. He's giant sized, he's blind, but he is the best archer in the damn game. So you talk to him.
He's so cool.
Oh, he is so cool. He is the most chill dude whatsoever. And you talk to him after you die to Calamite however many times. And then he just goes, "Oh, you having trouble with that dragon, eh? Yeah, he's been giving us a lot of problems. Even Gwen and his armies don't even want to attract his attention, because he's that feared and that scary to basically everybody. That's why he's one of the last true dragons that were still around at that time, is because he is so fearsome." So
yeah,
you talk with Goff a little bit, and then he's like, "Okay, I'll help you out." And so he's just like, he's fumbling to get his bow. But then, like, as soon as he has his bow, he just anchors it in place, senses where Calamite is flying about, pulls back, and then bam, right into his wing, sends him plummeting down back into the arena where you fight him. And so when you go back to fight it to his boss fight, he's grounded, he can't fly away, so that way you have a better chance of fighting him. Although he is still freaking deadly.
I always really like that. That's basically something you can do in Dark Souls. Like, you can basically, like, things in the world can be done to, like, make a boss fight easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is the cool thing about any FromSoft game is Miyazaki and the developers give you the tools to make the game easier for you. Unfortunately, because Dark Souls being Dark Souls, you, and like what Brody was talking about, you have this community of folks that are just like, nah, if you make it easy, you're cheating. You're not playing it the way it was meant to be played. You know, so there's that little issue with that. But I mean, you have the option to play it however you want because it's you playing the game. You play it so that way you can enjoy it. Don't let anyone else dictate to you how it's supposed to be played, quote unquote.
Well, I would also argue if it's an option in game, then it's a method that can be used in game. Like if you're using a glitch, that's different. If you're using an exploit, that's different. But if something exists in the game that exists to make the game easier for you, then you using it is what is intended to be done.
And that
Therefore,
is a
you could
perfectly
argue
valid response. Yeah, that's a perfectly valid
But then
response.
you could argue that someone who doesn't use it is playing the game wrong. Like if someone says, "Oh, you shouldn't be playing it like that. You're just going easy." You could respond, "So you're not using all tools available to you," is what I'm hearing.
Right.
Just like wearing the Calamity Ring,
that's
it's just like you're making it harder for yourself because you're trying to prove something. So.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like the beauty of Dark Souls is that it gives you different tools and different avenues to fight the same thing. And at the end of the day, it's like different builds, you know, like a strength build and a faith build. At least no one intelligence going, you're not playing the game right if you don't play a certain build. It's just a different angle at the same fight. If you can use in-game mechanics to outsmart, to make any enemy easier, if you know their weaknesses and you stack on items and everything, however you beat the boss, if it's legit your exploits like Red, then go do it. You know what I mean? Like, good for you, dude.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, back to the boss fight. Just like the other boss dragons, you can cut off his tail, you can get a weapon, and this is one of the best greatsword weapons in the game, and this is the Obsidian Greatsword. Nice, lovely.
You actually heard of this?
Yes, it is lovely, and that is the one weapon I could not get because Calamite will not hold still. Sorry, I'm projecting a little bit. Anyways.
Such a cool sword.
Mm-hmm. Very, very cool. So, that is Calamite, DLC boss. Very excellent design, very excellent aesthetic. Oh, and the Calamity Ring I was telling you about earlier, he actually does this move in his fight where he can basically catch you in his grasp, hover you above, like where he has that Cyclops eye, and he's basically using the Calamity Ring on you to double your damage, so that way you die in less than one shot to him later. So you got to be careful about not being stuck in that grapple maneuver.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty cool, though.
That's Calamite.
It is. It's a really cool mechanic. You know what I mean? Like that he actually uses the ring to increase the difficulty per se. A part of me wishes that you could use the ring as your own item to increase your own damage, but you know, I digress.
But yeah, that's the DLC boss. He can be kind of fought at any point when you access the DLC, and like I said before, you can make it so much easier for yourself when you talk to Hawkeye Goff, and he will shoot the guy out of the sky for you. So, very cool cinematic too. Anyways, moving on, and we're going to talk about the next dragon with a big question mark, because this next boss is actually related to Seath, the Scaleless. So the thing with Seath, and I may have mentioned this before, is he has been desperate to searching for immortality, and because of this, he also has this great thirst, this great hunger for knowledge. The thing is, after he helped Gwyn defeat the everlasting dragons, Gwyn did right by him. Seath is like the only dragon that he could stand. So he gave Seath a dukedom. I don't know why just a duke, but anyways, that's beside the point. And he lets Seath create this palace, or it's called the Duke's Archives. It's this giant building. If you take your attention back to the picture of Anne Orlando I posted, in the top left corner with like a tall tower or whatnot, and on the top of a hill, that's the Duke's Archives. And so,
oh yeah,
and so Seath uses that as a means to basically build his library, build his collection of knowledge, and then he has these creatures called channelers, which basically act as his eyes to also collect this knowledge and put it together and do the research for him. He does a shit ton of research, but the thing is, just like Magnus, just like the Thousand Sons, this search for knowledge eventually causes him to go insane.
Sanity is for the weak.
Because he still does not have the stone scales that grant the immortality. He did manage to find something called the primordial crystal, which does grant immortality, but that's not enough for him. He still wants to know more. He still has research to do. So this hunger for knowledge has him to do increasingly more horrific things and more horrific experiments, kind of like the Admech.
Yeah.
Among these horrific experiments includes kidnapping handmaidens and turning them into some lovely, lovely tentacle creatures called Pizzakas, if I'm saying that right. Let me see here. Ah, yes. And that.
Oh.
That's just
Wow.
one of the horrific experiments that he does on people.
And that's a bad hair day.
You wouldn't know the half of it.
Jesus Christ.
But there are some good things that come about it. He ends up discovering crystal sorcery, which basically is like regular sorcery like we talked about before where you use your soul energy, but crystal sorcery is that, but amped up. And you can also crystallize weapons, which makes them a lot stronger, but it also makes them a lot more brittle. They'll break sooner. So, how does this lead to our next quote-unquote dragon boss? There is a lovely boss called Crossbreed Priscilla. And you're probably wondering, why is she called Crossbreed? She's kind of like a half-human, half-dragon combination. And that's her, like, compared to your character, which is like the bottom right of the picture. But then here's a full-bodied picture of her with a weapon called the Life Hunt Scythe.
Dang.
Mm-hmm. So,
She's single?
Why are you the way that you are?
Well, the fun thing that a lot of people like to theorize is, how exactly did she come about? Obviously, this has something to do with Seath because dragon, white, fur, all that kind of stuff. I see what you did there, Brody. So, okay. Obviously, Seath had something to do with it. So, what exactly did he do to create Crossbreed Priscilla? There's some theories that say he and Gwyn had a little something to go on, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. However,
I'm not sure I want the details of that.
well, hey Brody, look up a picture of Guinevere. Gwyn has a daughter, also known as the Princess of Sunlight, named Guinevere. And she is a very pretty lady. I'll put it like that. So there's also some speculations that maybe Seath had something to do with Guinevere to create Crossbreed Priscilla. So the possibilities are endless.
Man, Guinevere could do so much better than that.
That is if. That's one big if. We don't know for sure. Because there is also lore that states that she married like a war god called Flan and escaped. But we will get... That's another story for another time. So, yeah. There's Guinevere.
Oh, dang. I've actually seen her before. Like, I haven't seen her in game, but I've seen gameplay of people meeting her.
So Dark Souls is famous for like leaving these messages that, like, if you have multiplayer activated, you can leave messages for other players to like warn them of traps or deliberately lead them to traps if you want to be a dick. And very, very often, like right before you meet her, you'll see a message that always says "Marvelous chest ahead."
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
As a community, we're very on the nose.
Absolutely. Anyways, back to Priscilla. So Priscilla, she's a crossbreed because half human, half dragon, who is obviously Seath has basically her quote-unquote father. Who's the mother? We don't know.
You decide.
She is locked up in a place called the Painted World of Ariamis, which when you explore Anor Londo, there is like a small cathedral or a chapel or whatnot that has a giant-ass painting that you can actually get sucked into it, and you actually meet her at the end of it. Then the funny thing is, she does not attack you immediately. She's just chill and minding her own business, and then you can actually talk with her. And she basically says, like, the painted world is a place for unwanted and forgotten things. So you can infer from her statements there that 9 times out of 10, people are put in the painted world because they are not wanted, or because acts as a really good prison because of what she is as a crossbreed, because Gwen hates dragons, and especially because of her weapon, the Life Hunt Scythe. It has an ability to basically steal life energy even from the gods. That's why she is imprisoned away in the painted world. So she is another optional boss. You can choose to ignore her, and she will tell you, this is the way to get out of here. Please leave. Don't come back. However, if you decide to be a right bastard, you can cut off her tail and get another dragon weapon called Priscilla's Dagger. Dagger, quote unquote, because the thing is still like about as big as a longsword.
Weapon, morality, weapon,
Yeah. So
morality, weapon.
She has a very interesting boss fight in that she has the power to turn invisible, and she can hit you while she's invisible. The only way to figure out how to find her is half of her boss arena is covered in snow, so you got to look for those bare footprints.
Brother.
Hope you got
I'd be so screaming at my screen. like 10 tries and I'd be like, she's cheating! She's cheating!
But
She's hacking.
Hacks!
But yeah, when you do defeat her, it's kind of sad. You do kind of feel like a rat bastard because like she told you, just leave us alone. We want nothing to do with you. Just leave. That's it. I'm not going to fight you unless I absolutely have to. So that goes back to that whole morality thing we were talking about before. Is just like, are you really the good guy, or are you just an absolute dick the entire game?
Oh my God! They've killed Kenny! You bastards!
So,
Yeah. That's one thing about FromSoft games in general that I love that moral question's always there. Bloodborne, in my opinion, really made that strong, really strong tone throughout the game. But Dark Souls definitely has that coded all over every game in the series.
So, with Seath's creation laid to waste, if you so chose, that leads to Seath himself, which you have the other pictures that have been posted before. He doesn't really change much. He's blind. You actually find him in the Duke's archives at first, and he bodies you in one shot. And you're thinking, what the hell? How is that fair? That's how it's supposed to be in game. You see him in the archives. He kills you, and then you respawn at a bonfire, which is like your save point. And Seath figured out a way to link it to a bonfire in his prisons. And so when you revive, you're revived in a prison cell. So then it is up to you. Thank you, Cody. So then it is up to you to escape, which it's very easy to do that. Make your way through the archives, and then you actually find Seath wandering what's called the Crystal Caves, which is an area kind of just behind outside the Duke's archives. As you do some exploring, you fight a bunch of man-eating clams, kind of like what you see over there on the far side of Ash Lake. So don't stray too far from the ship, like I said before. When you go deeper into these caves, you actually find the primordial crystal that Seath has in his possession that does keep him immortal, or keep him from dying. Keeps him from getting killed. You find that crystal, you find him, or that's where he comes in to defend the crystal and then to get you out of there. And so that leads to his boss fight. Like I said, he has grandfather sorcery, magic attacks. He does crystal. He has like a crystallized breath weapon, which is really interesting. And that if you are exposed to that crystal breath weapon, you can actually become cursed. Which then, when you respawn at the last bonfire you were at, it cuts your entire HP in half. Just.
Lord.
As if the game wasn't hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
So
mechanics like that have made me put my controller down before and take, a siesta.
Yep, you're right about that. The key to his boss fight is you got to destroy that crystal first before you can even hit him. Otherwise, he does not take any damage while that crystal is still active.
Right.
So, just like in other boss fights, you cut off his tail, you get a weapon, but this one is called the Moonlight Greatsword, which is a staple of all FromSoft games because they've made their way into as in almost any version of it's made its way into different all of their fantasy based games.
My guiding moonlight.
That looks
So,
really
yeah.
cool. It looks kind of like a more divine version of Guts' greatsword.
You can think of it like that, and the interesting thing about this sword is it deals strictly magic damage. Like, it doesn't do any physical damage because it's supposed to be like made of pure magic energy. So it is a very good sword to have, but you have to have very high intelligence. So you basically need to be like a wizard or a sorcerer build to be able to use this properly.
Yeah. This weapon holds a special place in my heart due to its close connection to one of my favorite bosses in, the entire FromSoft series. But I've never used it once. I've never spec'd.
Yep, I'm always more of like a sword and shield guy or a dual wielding sword guy. So
Yeah.
I was just like Ray, just like brute force my way through everything, do a nice little quality build because you got to be dexterous and strong.
Katanas or guts, bro. Those are my options every time.
There you go.
Um,
Good man, good man.
I have one question though.
Sure.
Seath, what's his mental state like? By the way, if I sound weird, my connection's a little choppy and cutting in and out, so hopefully I'm not too bad for these next couple minutes. But
I can hear you pretty fine.
okay. What's Seath like? Is he okay? Is he going insane? Is there any noticeable decay in his state, like in comparison to the world around us at this point?
Given we only really have like the backstory and his boss fight in game and then what other folks have said about him, by the time you actually fight him in his boss fight, he is like completely batshit insane. Like, and if you actually listen to the soundtrack, which is very interesting because Dark Souls only has a soundtrack for like their boss battles and maybe a couple of safe areas in their games. I think Miyazaki said in an interview like one time that like he actually asked the composer to do like some kind of psychotic theme for his boss music to like showcase like the insanity that's going on in his mind from all the research,
Right.
All the experiments that he's done and everything. So from what
Right.
from what we know, what's been told of, he is just completely batshit insane.
I mean, I ask because from what I can remember, I remember Seath seemed wild, but like not in the way of an animal, but like a man that's lost himself, and
Yeah.
the fact that you can call him a man, you know what I mean?
Yep. And
But
this-
he has a lot of character for a dragon boss, so I thought that might be an interesting thing to touch on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and don't worry. Seath is going to be important for all the rest of these dragon bosses. He's the last dragon boss we're going to talk about in the first Dark Souls, so now we're going to move on to the second Dark Souls game. But he has an effect on everything because of how crazy he is and all the stuff that he has done. So, let's not waste any time. We'll go straight to Dark Souls 2. He is a required boss to get to the end game because... as we talked about earlier, Gwyn actually bequeathed shards of his power to other different bosses throughout the game, and Seath is one of those recipients. Also as part of becoming a duke or whatnot and having his archives built. He's got a shard of Gwyn's power, which is also why he is just very, very strong, very powerful. That being said, now let's go on to Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls has come and gone. You either link the fire or you bring it to the Age of Dark. It does not specify which ending is canon because eventually you'll learn come Dark Souls 3, both endings are canon because enough cycles of light and dark have gone through. This is like it just keeps on decaying and decaying and decaying. Come to the time of Dark Souls 2, we are in a completely different kingdom called Drangleic. And this Dark Souls 2 kind of focuses more on the human side of things. And for a lot of reasons, it is considered the weaker of... A lot of fans consider this the weakest of the three. Some even would downright say it sucks. I beg to disagree. I would say it plays different. If you ever get a chance to play it, it plays different. Because Miyazaki didn't have any input in this.
Black sheep of the FromSoft family.
Yeah, I still enjoy it. It definitely has its problems. Bad hitboxes for some bosses, areas that are just downright unfair that like to gank you with a bunch of enemies that like you have no business fighting at the level that you're supposed to be playing at. But anyways, that's neither here nor there.
Even for Dark Souls terms, by the way. Even on Dark Souls terms, it's just unfair amounts of ganking.
Yeah, and that's been a major complaint about Dark Souls 2. However, it got re-released as a what was it called, Scholar of the First Sin, which kind of fixed some of those problems, and then also included all the DLC in it, which also kind of fixes up like the storyline or whatnot. So, basic premise of Dark Souls 2, more human focused, and it's more about trying to find a solution to the Curse of the Dark Sign, and how the Age of Fire and the Age of Dark kind of tie into that. So, significant amount of time has passed, we'll put it like that. So, we all know Gwyn and the gods hate the dragons. However, there are pockets of humanity that actually kind of like the dragons, or they take a liking to the dragons, and some have even developed dragon riders in the past. In the Kingdom of Drangleic, there are a few dragon rider bosses. See here. Unfortunately, they are not riding dragons as you fight them in their boss fight, which I thought was a completely missed opportunity, but I digress.
Sounds like it.
Yep, you actually fight
the dragon riders aren't dragon riding.
Yep, and that's still, like I said, completely missed opportunity, but that's what these guys kind of look like. Pretty cool looking, but
Chonky.
Oh yeah, they chonky. They big boys. They're about 2 to 3 times your character's height. For the most part, you don't really see any any quote unquote real dragons. You see a lot of your wyverns and your drakes. And actually, I'll go ahead and point this out. Most of the drakes and the wyverns that you see in Dark Souls 2 are basically the same model after this one boss called the Guardian Dragon. And that's what he looks like.
He looks really cracked out. Yeah,
I'll go into his lore in just a second.
Holy crap. That is a meth dealer of a dragon, bro. Like,
yep. This also just lends credence to the everything is just slowly degrading, and we brought this up like a dozen times already, but it's just like everything's just kind of getting less and less. Like the wyverns and drakes, they're not real dragons, and now even they're looking just like this. But
yeah, well, to be fair to us, it's a major tone in Dark Souls.
Oh, absolutely, but. So this boss right here, his frame is the basis for most of the dragons that you do see in the game. There is a place called Hades Tower of Flame, and it's basically like a mini boss of him, and you do the same exact thing. Unfortunately, I forgot to mention, with Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3, they got rid of the cutting off the dragon's tail to get a special weapon trick, which, again, missed opportunity. I'm sad about that.
That's a mechanic I didn't understand losing. That just seemed cool to me.
Yeah, that's kind of a sad thing, but it is what it is.
Yeah, Dark Souls 3 is still a masterpiece.
Oh, I freaking love Dark Souls 3. Anyways, so yeah, that's the Guardian Dragon and basically the frame for all of the other dragons you see. Now the reason he is called the Guardian Dragon is because he is actually guarding a place called the Dragon Eyrie, Aerie, kind of like an aviary almost. So it's like you fight him, you go past his cage, you go up an elevator, and once you get to the top of the elevator, this is what you see: a giant castle on top of like a plateau with a bunch of other dragons floating in the distance, and you got to weave your way around different dragon nests to get to this castle. So
that's cool.
Oh, it's probably one of my favorite locations in game after the Iron Keep. But again, the Iron Keep, that's a whole other story for a whole other time. If we want more, they have a pest problem.
I think they might have an issue of dragons or something, man.
We'll see. Not if you're a dragon rider, but also.
Oh no, fair enough.
Yep, but also the Dragon Eyrie is home to a cult called the Dragon Remnant, which basically is like a group of humans that serve to worship quote unquote the dragons. of Dark Souls, and they go around wearing, it's called Black Dragon armor, and it looks freaking cool.
Yes, sir. I'll take 2, please.
Whoa.
So
This is how men want to dress.
I'll go more into depth for these guys kind of like right at the end of the episode, because it involves more multiplayer stuff, so I don't really have a way to kind of fit it in with the lore stuff. But so why this dragon area is important is because when you fight through all these dragons, you fight through all those guys in black armor, you actually come across the ancient dragon, and he is supposedly one of the last of his kind. I say supposedly. Does that not look like an ancient dragon to you?
Whoa. Yeah, no, thick stone skin, absolutely massive, and like, out of all the crackhead dragons we've seen, bro, that's the most posh and official.
Yep. And the interesting thing is, he's actually completely friendly to you, because partway through the game,
Wow.
you were told to kill the king of the Drangleic, but to do that, you need to have access to something called the Ashen Mist Heart. I'm not going to go into the details of what that is, but you have to talk to this guy to get to it. You have to talk to the ancient dragon, and he will give it to you, and then you are free to just leave him alone and let him mind his own business. However, if you are so inclined, you can also fight him as a boss.
Oh my God! They've killed Kenny! You bastards!
And if y'all remember that complaint that was made about dumb, stupid hitboxes in the game, his boss fight is a testament to quote unquote really bad hitboxes, because he has a massive AoE attack with his fire breath or whatnot, tail swipes, basic dragon maneuvers, and he flies around the arena all the time. He is a test of endurance. I swear it's probably taken me like 20 tries to be able to solo him.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see your picture of your character fighting that thing. I mean, that makes sense. At least in my mind, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I say he is supposedly one of the last true dragons is whenever you beat a boss, you get a boss soul, and it'll tell you like all about that soul, that you collected from defeating that boss. When you defeat the ancient dragon, quote unquote, you get a giant soul. Not a dragon's soul.
That's really weird.
Yep. The main theory is that the king of Drangleic, his name is Vendrick. He has a brother named Aldia. Aldia has a study where he does research that is located right before you go to the Dragon Eyrie. That's how you get to the Guardian Dragon and find the Dragon Eyrie. He has his keep built around that area to keep it hidden. There is some speculation that Aldia got a hold of some of Seath's research and figured out how to basically create a dragon, but using a giant soul instead, because that was the only powerful thing he had on hand to be able to recreate the dragons. So that's the lore tidbit about the ancient dragon. There's really not that much else to him. He kind of just minds his own business, other than that one part where you talk to him. That's about it. So, moving right along.
He's a liar.
A lot of interesting stuff going on here. So, now we get to the DLC boss. This guy's actually pretty interesting. I get not too much about him, but like what little bits of lore that you do get are very, very cool. To go further along in the game, you can actually choose not to kill Vendrick, and then he will send you on like a fetch quest to go after the crowns of the 3 kings that preceded him. Because again, like I said, there's a huge stretch of time that takes place between Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2. So there have been multiple ages before that we know of. One of these crowns is called the Crown of the Sunken King, because this king lived in a place called it is a underground region called Shulva, and Shulva is the home to one is the location of a dragon called Sin. Sinh, but he is called Sin, the Slumbering Dragon. This guy is pretty cool because it is believed that he kind of raided the area. He's been kind of raiding the area before. That is Sin. And if you notice a interesting feature about, if you notice an interesting feature about him, he has a giant spear plunged through his chest. So the people worshipped Sin as like their god because he was a terrifying dragon that was in the area, and there was nobody around to really deal with them. And so sacrifices were made, worship continued. However, there was one warrior called Jorg, who decided to take the fight to the dragon so he would stop terrorizing people, so sacrifices would stop being made, so worship would stop happening. So Jorg goes in, leads an army. Of course, Sin just decimates the entire army, but before Jorg could be killed, he plunges that spear through Sin's chest. However, it did not kill him.
You should have gone for the head.
So what Sin did was just, he was wounded, could not get the spear out, so he just slumbers. And as he slumbers, that spear in his chest is causing that wound to fester and get worse and sicken him and get more poisonous. As he slumbered, everything goes back to normal in the kingdom. However, later on down the road, so the Sunken King, after Sin slumbered, he created this kingdom, and then he married a queen. And the queen kind of whispered in his ear and says, there is a dragon sleeping beneath here. If you wake him up, you can kill him and gain his power. You become a more powerful king. So the king listens to this, goes down with his army, wakens up Sin. Sin is definitely not pleased with this, and he spews poisoned fire breath and plunges the entire kingdom of Shulva into just basically a poisonous waste.
Disturbs my slumber.
So another key feature of any kind of FromSoft game is that Miyazaki has a fetish for poison swamp areas, or just areas dedicated to poison in general. This is the
I heard about this.
Yep. So in Dark Souls, you have what's called Blight Town, which is like the poison swamp area for them. Dark Souls 2, their answer is the Sunken Kingdom of Shulva. That's like the poisoned area.
Always with the poison, dude.
Oh, always with the poison. And Sin can fly around. He has like that mixture of poisoned fire breath, which is actually a really cool cinematic. Not a cinematic, but when you go into his boss arena, you see him waking up. He just shoots fire into the ceiling because he's mad that you're here to try and fight him. But as you see like that bright orange yellow flame, it then just turns into like a sickly green from all the poison that's like stored up and festering in his wound. And if you go near him, if you hit him too many times, or if you hit him with your weapon enough, that actually causes corrosion damage to your weapons and can break your weapons in the fight. So you better have a good backup when you're fighting him, or you better have plenty of summons with you to help you take him down.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed about like Dark Souls storytelling through its mechanics and everything is like, it may not make perfect sense if you just think about like an infected wound, right? Like, how is that doing acid damage? How is it turning his fire breath into like poison air and all that? But there's something so wonderful about the way Miyazaki and his writing team directs these things, to where like your suspension of disbelief is more than like instilled enough to where you just like agree with whatever the Dark Souls logic is. You know what I mean? He's like, oh yeah, he's got an infection, so obviously, he's going to be spewing sickness everywhere, even though that may not make the most sense if you think about it logically.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's also really heavy thematically. Like, the theme, it matters thematically more than it does logically.
Exactly. The story and the theme is executed well enough to where logic doesn't need to be applied so strictly, and it makes sense.
And that leads to that whole suspension of disbelief is just like, you are, because it is the thematically is thematically perfect, you are willing to suspend your disbelief on like, okay, this isn't logical, but man, this is so cool. This makes this still makes sense.
Yeah. The reason why I brought that up is because I can remember moments in Dark Souls where I would meet a boss or I'd see him do something, and in the moment, I saw A and B meet together, and I was like, cool, no questions, that makes sense. You know, that's super awesome. And the theme and the soundtrack and everything, just, it's beautiful. But then I'm thinking about this and I'm looking at the picture and I'm listening to all the details, and a part of my brain was like, that doesn't make logical sense. It's just an infected wound. But then it made me realize, like, wait, that's a part of what makes FromSoft so amazing. Like, that suspension of disbelief through that storytelling and mysterious theme and everything just doesn't make you question it at all.
And sadly, that is the only other dragon boss from Dark Souls 2, and he's a DLC boss at that. So, again, the other big complaint of Dark Souls 2 is in Dark Souls, all the bosses you face is like a very even mix of like special knights in armor, dragon, and then some horde eldritch monstrosity. The big complaint of Dark Souls 2 is a vast majority of their bosses are just some flavor of dude in armor. Apart from a few standouts, but for the most part, like a lot of the bosses you face are either like NPC-sized characters or just really big dudes in knight armor, and that's about it. It gets to become kind of one note, but again, there are a few standouts, and there are some whose lore is very interesting, and I think that also, I feel like that also is part in the more human side that you're trying to learn from the lore, because a lot of Dark Souls 2 is focused more on like, how do you figure out the curse of the dark sign? Like, how do you get rid of that? It's not, I mean, it does tie into the Age of Fire and the Age of Dark, but not as much as like, how do we get rid of the dark sign? Like, how can we stop how can we stop from being undead? But that's Dark Souls 2.
I mean, I think that more human take is something that really interests me, because like, I'd love to see a Dark Souls or a FromSoft game in general where I love me some eldritch abominations and some massive giants and wacky hydras and everything, don't get me wrong, but I think it'd be interesting to see Miyazaki tackle a game that's almost more grounded, in the sense that, like, you know, you're dueling much more humanoid characters than you are massive gods.
Yeah, I mean, I can
But
agree
anyway,
with that.
yeah, I'd love to see how they could handle that.
Yeah, I think if you peel back the layers, like Dark Souls 2 has some really interesting lore, but it's covered by, I mean, it's all kind of not really tarnished, but it's just, I'm not sure how to describe it. It's kind of muddied by some poor design choices that were made during development. I'll put it like that. Anyways, we still have Dark Souls 3 to cover, and then I promise we'll be done. This is gonna be a very long episode, so, but we're gonna try and get through this. So Dark Souls 3, just like before, unknown amount of time passes with between Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. Just like we've all talked about, so many cycles of fire and dark. Everything is just, you can really tell in this game, everything is just degraded so bad. It's like Gears of War 3. Everyone is on their last handhold for everything.
Yes.
So it's just like, it then becomes a point of just like, why are we even continuing?
Dark Souls 3 is a part of the reason why I'm a little bit more friendly towards the Age of Darkness ending, because like, it's just so bad. Dark Souls 3 really epitomizes the apocalypse. Like, the cycle is not working, guys. The Age of Gods is not working. The Flame is not working. Like, that's kind of, in my opinion, the overarching message of Dark Souls 3 is like, guys, like, we're Sisyphus right now. Like, the boulder keeps coming back down.
And so, Ray, you're familiar with this next area, the Kingdom of Lothric. Nice. I like it. I'm a sucker for Gothic design and architecture, and this is just like, it just tickles my pickle, if you know what I mean. Anyways.
Castle
big. First city you get in Dark Souls 3, right? This is like the first one you ever go to right after you get past the graveyard. Right? Yes.
So, okay, so this whole area consists of technically 3 levels. The area that you're at, the area that you're talking about after the graveyard is called the High Wall of Lothric. So it's kind of like more like these towers here on the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
that's that area that you go to, and then you're basically at the front gate where you get to explore the rest of the world. However, you do come back, and then you fight a really hard boss called the Dancer. Again, another boss, another story for another time. And then you get to explore Lothric Castle, which is basically the whole building on the top right. And then you fight your way into the Grand Archives, which is that pyramidal building on the left. Now it's called the Grand Archives. Yep.
No, go ahead. I'm piecing things together.
I thought you had a question.
No, I'm piecing things together. Things are clicking.
Yep. We're gonna get to that, but I'm glad you're making that connection. So again, everything is degrading so horribly bad. But Lothric, just like Drangleic, also fancy their dragon riders. However, you actually have some dragons to fight, which are these are the two that you see in
those
Lothric
assholes.
Castle. Those guys. Yep. The other big thing about Dark Souls,
guys.
Yeah, they are very. They like to spam their fire breath attack. I'll put it like that. These are not actual bosses. These two that I've just pictured, they're not actual bosses. They're more of like an obstacle to get you through Lothric Castle. But there is a way you can kind of get around it if you can also fight through all the guards and other creatures first. The interesting thing to say about these they are actually called wyverns too. Is they are infected by. Everything is basically so horribly infected by the dark, which in Dark Souls 3 is called the pus of man, because it's finally made that connection that humanity and the dark soul or the dark energy, they're all interconnected. So dark is now called the pus of man in Dark Souls 3. Everlasting dragons are called archdragons, and then everything associated with the everlasting dragons, they're like either archdragon, archtree, arch. And when you sneak around these dragons or whatnot, and like you can kill them, and then you find they're infected with this, this dark energy, which kind of erupts out of your chest like a chest burster alien, and looks like a slimy, oily eel. And it's just like those things are just terrifying to fight. That's the Lothric wyverns.
Yes.
So let's get on to some of the actual bosses. There is actually a place you can go to called Archdragon Peak, which is supposedly like the last refuge of any dragon left in the world and anyone who worships the dragon, because there's this cult of those that worship the dragons that want to become a dragon themselves, which also feeds into the multiplayer thing that I'll talk about, the covenant system that I'll talk about later. Here's a picture of Archdragon Peak that I'm about to post right now. Boom.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool place. And you actually get to the end of it, and this is the corpse of possibly, in the distance, this is the corpse of possibly the largest dragon to have ever existed in Dark Souls.
You've got mail.
That is your Ancalagon the Black reference.
Oh, it's a mountain-sized dragon.
Yep, it is a mountain-sized dragon, my friend.
Such a cool area to explore.
So when you go to Archdragon Peak, you actually do have a dragon. There are two dragon boss fights. The second one is very interesting, but I will just breeze through the first one really quick because there's really nothing to him. He's called the Ancient Wyvern. And just like the whole issue with the Guardian Dragon in Dark Souls 2, he looks like the same exact model from the wyverns that you see in Lothric. Just bigger. And just like there are multiple ways that you can fight him, there are two ways you can fight him. Of course, you can brute force your way to whittling him down. However, the quote-unquote correct way, or the way that's technically programmed into the game, is you escape, you go around him, and then you go kind of around the outer area of his arena, and he'll just kind of look for you, but then he'll go back to where he started, and then you're up on top of this ledge, and then you have the option of basically doing a plunge attack right straight through his brain, and then you can off him in one hit.
Yeah,
So,
this fight was interesting. I remember getting very frustrated with this fight because I had tried the whittle down thing, and I'd gotten actually pretty close to beating him that way like 2 or 3 times. And if anyone knows this fight, it takes so long. It takes so long to whittle him down.
Yes, it
And
does.
then my cousin who was on the call with me, uh he goes, "Oh wait, I've seen a video describing like a breakdown of this fight and like the pros and cons of like this kind of game design. You're supposed to like jump on top of him from that thing up there." And I looked at him in like utter disbelief and I was like, how am I supposed to figure that out like organically? Like that to me that would have never clicked if someone did not tell me outside of like the game. I didn't understand like where the obvious hint was. Maybe I missed something, but that kind of annoyed me because I'd been sitting there for like 30 minutes trying to beat this guy's health bar down.
Yeah.
But well, I got over it eventually.
Yeah. That's basically him. Just a kind of like a, I hate to use the term because it sounds bad, more like kind of like a more gimmicky boss fight. Like you use that
Yes.
he's famous for that one exploit that you can use to end it really quickly. I mean, it's a bit of a spectacle, but man, getting to that point where you can do the plunge attack is a test of endurance in and of itself.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
let's talk about the next boss of Arch Dragon Peak. Remember how I said earlier that Gwyn was kind of like a shit father?
Yeah.
So, earlier I believe I mentioned that he had a son that basically did something foolish and resulted in him being stricken from all records.
No, the lie detector determined that was a lie.
It is heavily implied that this boss is that missing son.
I know this boss.
This
I've seen
boss,
this boss.
this boss is called the Nameless King. And if that alone doesn't tell you what he may or may not be, it's like that classic FromSoft case of tell us he is Gwyn's long lost son without telling us he's Gwyn's long lost son.
God, I love this fight.
Oh, I hate this fight so freaking much. For a while he was described as one of the hardest bosses in the entire game. He is a completely optional boss. I guarantee he probably took me about 50 tries to get because it's just like his moveset. He comes in two phases. The first phase, he's riding on the dragon that you see in this picture. It is called the King of the Storm. That phase is easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you fight him on foot. He has these wide sweeping attacks, these odd timings, and then like his area of effect is just all over the place. So it's really, really hard to gauge just where he's going to attack, where he's going to hit, how you can best dodge roll his moves. And it is so hard. But you can also see his picture, just from his picture, his crown, his wild white hair, the electricity, his armor, everything is pointing to he is the long lost forgotten son of Gwyn. You're probably wondering why exactly was he stricken from the record? Because the original Dark Souls just kind of used that as flavor text and didn't really develop anything further about it until this game. So he is riding a dragon called the King of the Storm. It is heavily implied that during the war with the dragons, he actually took the side of the dragons and saw how much of a genocidal maniac that Gwyn was becoming against the dragons. So this betrayal was what caused Gwyn to basically disown him as a son and then strike him from every single record known to existence. So that is why he is called the Nameless King.
You've been grounded so hard your dad disowns you?
In my opinion, he has some really badass lore. And one of the reasons why he's one of my favorite bosses is, one, badass lore, and two, I had fought him twice before I was like, okay, what's this guy's deal? I got through the dragon really fast, but then that second bit kicked my ass way faster than any other boss leading up to that point. Honestly, I had gotten pretty good at the game, so the fact that I was getting a hard stop was kind of getting under my skin. So I looked it up, and then I realized, oh wait, this is where Gerald is one of the hardest bosses in the game. No wonder this is becoming a hard stop. But it took me 5 tries to beat him, and on the 5th try, my palms had never been sweating so much, and I was on like 1 hit of health for like a good, the last like 10% of the fight, which feels like forever when you're fighting it. And I finished with like this really cool, you know how like different weapons have like their special attack when you hold the right button or whatever. I was wielding a katana at the time, and I did like this badass like finishing cut sweep thing like through his neck, and that's how I beat the boss. And I had never felt cooler in a Dark Souls game before.
Yeah, he is. I love his lore. He's like, this is like peak Dark Souls storytelling right here. It's just the mechanics of his boss fight. The fact it took me 50 damn tries to finally get it right, because I'm the kind that doesn't use summons, not because like I'm like, oh, hoity-toity, like, oh no, you're not a true man. It's just like I don't have access to the multiplayer because I don't have the Xbox Live Gold pass or anything. So it's just like I don't have access to friends that can help me. So I have to do everything by myself. That's why his boss fight was so hard for me.
I tried finding a summon for that fight. I couldn't find it though. Like where it was supposed to be wasn't there, so I couldn't get the summon and cheese it.
Yeah, it's really tricky because you have to do like so many things right earlier in the game to be able to make that summon happen. But anyways, we're getting off the rails here. So that's him. Right. Really awesome lore, really hard boss. Now, later on, you can actually go to a place called the Consumed King's Garden. A big mention is made during Dark Souls 3 of finding Prince Lothric. However, Prince Lothric has a dad called King Osiris. In the Consumed King's Garden, you find Osiris. And remember what we were talking about with the Grand Archives, that big building?
Yeah.
So, let's just say Osiris was obsessed with being able to produce a viable heir that could link the fire, because ever since Dark Souls 1, it has become a cultural thing to basically create another Lord Ascender so that way the Age of Fire can keep on going. Osiris was so consumed by this obsession for it, he resorts to go into the Grand Archives to look up how to produce this next Lord Ascender.
You've got mail.
Here's the thing about the Grand Archives. Dang it, Brody, you beat me to it. Ray, describe what Osiris looks like, please, for our listeners.
He looks like a cracked out Grim Reaper dragon, but naked.
All right. Does he look similar to another dragon that we've been talking about this entire episode?
Wait, hang on a second.
Yes, he does.
Hang on. Wait a
He's
second.
putting it together. The neurons are activating.
Is it all coming together now?
Wait for it.
I feel like if the claws, not the claws, I feel like if the...
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
Like a part of me wants to say he looks like what's his name, Seif.
Yeah.
But yeah, he looks like Seif, but like more. Hang on a second. Did he fuse with Seif? No. Wait. Hang on.
Not quite.
Tell me what I'm not seeing.
You got it right on the head, though. As Osiris is reading through these archives to research and learn more. Again, research, going crazy. Who else is famous for doing that? As he's going through this research, he's becoming more and more like Seith. So again, with Seith just has this, you only really interact with him in his boss fight, but he has this overarching reach that you would not expect him to have because of the crazy shit that he has done in his hunt for knowledge. And it is through fighting Osiris that you are able to access Archdragon Peak to be able to fight the Ancient Wyvern and to find out about the Nameless King. So that's what's really great about Dark Souls is just like this whole thematic circular storytelling where everything has like a branch that all comes back around full circle.
I loved Osiris's boss fight, and he had one of the longest lasting impressions on me in terms of story. Oh, yeah. Because during the boss fight and after the boss fight, you can hear him kind of going insane in moments of lucidity.
He's one of the few bosses that actually speaks to you.
Finally taken notice, have you, of the power of my beloved Ocelot?
And during these like very, very vivid moments of lucidity. Like I mentioned, he starts like crying and wailing about his son and stuff. And I can't remember exactly what he says, but I remember it being like disturbingly sad. You know what I mean? And it's just like, wow, like this used to be a person. Like whatever we're fighting, and honestly, in my opinion, mercy killing used to be like an actual sentient being.
It's really tragic how far things have gone, how bad things have gotten for like a king to forsake his youngest son who's supposed to be, or to forsake both of his sons who were supposed to be a Lord of Cinder, just to try and have another one that he's supposedly cradling, although the baby is invisible. There was a whole thing about like if the baby was actually present in the game, then it would have been like rated X or something, because or it wouldn't have made it past censors in like Japan, Australia, places like that. So it's just like they made it invisible so that way it implies he might be holding a baby, or it could just be he is just so delusional at this point. He is so far gone that he just thinks he's holding a baby. In the picture that I posted, you see him kind of like holding his left hand like he's cradling something. That's supposedly him cradling his youngest baby.
Yeah, so I had never heard of the censorship thing. The way I interpret it, you just hit me with the memory of the fight. During the first half of the fight before he goes into his second phase, he's very vocal. And he is obviously trying to protect this child, right? And then when the second phase is introduced, it's as if the child has died, or he comes to the realization of it, and he goes completely insane. And that's when like the very last part of his humanity dies. And then you're just fighting a rabid animal. He throws the staff aside, goes on all fours, and just goes rabid.
Yep. And then he has crystal dragon breath, just like Seath. He is just wild. So
yeah. Cool fight. He's an optional boss. Definitely had one of the largest impacts on me, like, because I can still vividly remember it.
Oh, hang on, but this though.
Yeah, go ahead.
So like, did Seath intend for anyone who reads his knowledge to like basically become him, or is that just like an accident?
To our best guess, it is just a complete accident. It kind of ties into that whole forbidden knowledge, or things that man was not meant to know. So you can kind of imagine like if Seath went insane, learning the knowledge that he did, like what that could possibly do to a human being. And you can just take one look at Osiris and see the result of basically looking up information that you were never meant to know. So to our best guess, to answer your question, it is just a complete accident that basically he's turning into another Seath, because he is so consumed by this hunger for knowledge, just like Seath was countless millennia ago.
Very interesting. Because like I wasn't sure if it was like a Voldemort thing where like he like hid himself in his knowledge in his books or some shit, and it was like anyone who does the research basically slowly becomes him, like in order to like let himself live forever or something like that, something contrived like that. Not contrived, but
yeah. And that's also a possibility too, although I think what little lore there is written is it leans towards it's just an accident. It does that. So before we get to our final dragon boss, I promise we have one more main boss, but I do want to give like two more honorable mentions. So crossbreed Priscilla, we talked about her from Dark Souls 1. There is another crossbreed character that you meet in Dark Souls 3 called Yorksha. Very, very similar. This one's not a boss, but she's very friendly, and she introduces you to another covenant. It is said that she was possibly another creation of Seath's in the whole crossbreeding thing, but instead of being sentenced to the painted world like Priscilla, she was actually taken in under Gwen's youngest son, Gwendolyn. Now, to brush over his lore very quickly, because and to basically again reaffirm that Gwen was a shit father. Gwendolyn was born a boy who had powers associated with the moon, and he was also born with like the lower half of like a bunch of snakes, kind of like a reverse Medusa almost. Gwen sees this and says, "Fuck no. no son of mine is going to be associated with the moon power. You're going to be a fucking girl. So he creates a ring called the Ring of Reversal, forces Gwen to wear this ring, and for all intents and purposes, basically makes him, like, forces him into being a trans woman.
Wow, that's messed up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty sad.
Talk about twisted.
So, like, Gwendolyn's character in the first Dark Souls game is voiced by, like, a young guy. But the way he appears... Brody, go ahead and find me a picture. But the way he appears in game and the way he moves around and kind of acts is very feminine. Yes. And part of that is because he was forcibly raised to be a girl, even though he was born a boy, and because of that ring that that Gwen had given him. So Gwendolyn here was actually basically in charge of taking care of Yorkshire. So that's the one honorable mention.
You've got mail.
That's Gwendolyn.
Cool.
And one thing interesting about Gwendolyn that I just want to mention is that the things that he's being forced to wear is like this massive mask that, to me, just resembles the sun. Like the spikes resemble the rays of the sun, and his clothes are like smothered in gold highlights and everything. Just constant sun iconography, almost robbing him of even more of what he was born to do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because he was meant to be the moon, but he's covered in sun iconography.
You see it now? It's very clear. Like his father saw what he was and said, "No, you are the complete opposite."
Gwen, Father of the Year. Yay.
Yeah, Gwyn sucks. He's the reason why I like the Nameless King so much, and why the Nameless King is such a badass for rebelling.
And the other thing about one last thing about Gwendolyn is because he is associated with the moon, he has very powerful illusion magic. If you ever get around to playing the original Dark Souls, I won't spoil anything for you. Just know that he is a very powerful illusionist. Okay.
Oh wait, I actually know the twist. I know the twist.
Okay. All right then. That'll work. Last honorable mention before we get to our final dragon. I know this has been a very long episode, so thank you, dear listeners, for sticking this out. There is another character in the DLC called the Painter of Dark Souls 3. In Dark Souls 3, you don't go to the painted world of Ariamis, but you go to a painted world called Ariandel. And then you discover that it too goes through its cycles, just like the Ages of Fire and Dark. The longer this painted world lasts, the more it begins to fester and rot. And you really notice it in this game because so many cycles have come and gone, and the degradation, just like we just beaten with a stick this entire episode, the degradation is so bad, and it is up to this painter to basically create a new one to restart the cycle. Now, if you notice anything about this painter, it is very suspected that she may be a daughter or a descendant of Priscilla, the original inhabitant of the original painted world. She kind of has those vaguely reptilian features, the eyes, the scaling, the dried skin.
That last image I just sent really starts showing that less than draconic nature underneath it. Yep. Underneath it all.
Again, honorable mention, she's not a boss character. She's very friendly, and in the main part of the DLCs is trying to help her create this new painted world. So, that leads into our final boss we're going to talk about tonight, which is also part of your quest to help her find this painted world, and you encounter probably one of my favorite dragon boss fights in all of the games. You encounter Dark Eater Midir.
Oh.
People don't even, if you're even vaguely aware of FromSoft and Dark Souls culture, you wouldn't have even need to play Dark Souls 3 to have at least somewhat heard of him, or at least heard the name Midir.
Along with Nameless King, he is also considered one of the hardest bosses in the entire game. A little bit of background on his lore. By the time you see him in the DLC, it is believed that where you find him is actually it's in a place called the Ringed City, which you find out is the original nesting place or the original abode of the furtive pygmy, the kingdom that he created.
You've got mail. And
dang it, Brody, you're beating me to it. You're beating me to this. The Ring City is the original abode of the furtive pygmy humanity, where they actually kind of cultivated the dark soul. And then you also find out that humanity did participate in the war with the dragons, but Gwyn was very good about hiding that fact. And then every human knight that fought alongside it, he cursed that dark soul in that ring of fire, creating the dark sign, just like what we talked about. His plan, he wanted to keep the humans as far away from his kingdom and his plans as possible, because he wanted nothing to do with the dark soul and the dark energy they're in. So, Midir is the last archdragon in existence. Gwyn and the other gods raise him to fight alongside them and to fight this dark energy. That is why he's called the Dark Eater, is because if humanity and their dark soul ever gets too powerful, then Dark Eater Midir can come in and call that and keep it under check, basically. However, because he is exposed to this dark energy for so long, countless millennia, we don't even know how long he's been doing this. You can see in this first picture that I posted, he is so heavily corrupted by dark energy, he has basically lost his true sense of purpose, and it is time for him to be put down. And because of this dark energy that he has absorbed, he now has, again, he's one of the hardest boss fights. It took me a few tries. It didn't take me near as long to beat him as it did the Nameless King. But he has a second phase where he's just so swollen by dark energy that he has a freaking Godzilla laser beam as his breath weapon. It is so freaking badass, but damn, is it hard to try and dodge. And you actually meet him at several points in the game. He flies overhead. You can see him in the distance. And then when you're going across a cavern or whatnot, he actually jumps on the bridge and you're trying to fight him off. When you fight him off, he actually falls off the bridge into this chasm, into this great chasm, and then you're actually told to go find him and kill him and basically end his suffering, because he's just suffering at this point from all the dark energy that he is trying to fight off, and it's just his time is done. I'm tired, boss. Just like that gif.
Yeah.
And then you go down into the cavern, you fight him. It is an epic boss fight. Definitely one of the best dragon boss fights in the entire trilogy. And one interesting thing of note is a lot of people have kind of pointed out the cavern that you fight him in is very suspiciously similar to where the first flame had erupted, creating this whole series to begin with. Because it is implied that you are so far into the future when you travel to the Ring City that the first flame is basically dead or dying or going out. So this is the cavern that it supposedly the first flame had erupted from. After you beat him, you put him out of his misery. Epic boss battle, but once you defeat him, that is it. The last dragon in existence, and with his death, all the dragons are extinct, including the wyverns, the drakes, all of it. And thus we've come around full circle to the main theme of Dark Souls. Everything ends in one way, shape, or form.
Right.
Very sad.
Yep.
Yeah, Dark Souls is a really interesting case study, and like everything seems nihilistic until maybe the end isn't really the end. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it almost forces you to change perspectives if you don't want to like finish the series completely depressed, you know? It's like, maybe it's time for a new age. Like, this clearly isn't working, you know? Again, I kind of mentioned in passing as a joke, like the Sisyphus example. But I think this is actually a really strong analog of quite literally Sisyphus. It's like the flame cycle is just rolling the boulder up just for it to inevitably roll down. And every time it rolls down, it's just crushing more and more and more in its path.
Yeah. And so that is the tragic tale of the dragons of Dark Souls. Really quickly, just to give lip service to the online play, there is a covenant system, which that's how the multiplayer system works. Is like you have the Sun Bros who you can summon in to help you with a boss fight or whatnot. You have like the Watchdogs of Farron. I think you might be familiar with them, Ray. It's like they're protecting like a a swamp or a tomb area. If you go in there, you know, all the phantoms can be summoned and then they can fight you. For the dragons, each game has like a Path of the Dragon covenant, and that's the main symbol is like that dragon eye. And how you progress in this covenant is you present dragon scales to to whoever the representative is for that particular game. And then the kind of benefits that you can get from it are basically you get to turn into a dragon, because that erupted out of the cult of, you know, the different human cults that want to become dragons. As you deliver more scales, you get like a dragon headstone that transforms your head into a dragon. You get the torso stone that turns your body into a dragon. And this is how you would look in the first Dark Souls. That's what you get turned into.
Like a chicken.
It's kind of...
Chicken Man.
This is the second best version. My favorite version is the black dragon armor that I showed you previously from Dark Souls 2. That is from serving in Dark Souls 2 Path of the Dragon, or in that case, it's called the Dragon Remnant. In Dark Souls 3, there is, again, the Path of the Dragon, but man, this one looks just really goofy, and just for lip service, I'm gonna post it here, but it is just what has happened, you know? It looks like a starved goat, almost.
The decay, though. You know what I mean? Like, everything has decayed.
That's the only, like, explanation I could possibly think of that would make sense.
You know what it looks like? It looks like a hollowed dragon. Like the actual hollowing when you die over and over and over repeatedly.
Ooh.
A human being looks like that. When they're hollowed, a human being looks exactly like that. That's just a hollowed dragon.
I never thought of it like that. That is very interesting.
Light bulb.
I never thought of it either. I just looked at his rib cage and I was like, wait a minute, I've seen that before.
See, even I'm learning something in this episode.
Here, let me find just for like so Rayway can compare. Like, let me find a hollowed person here.
Well, while Brody's finding that picture, Ray, do you have any questions about this overly long episode that we've embarked upon?
I'm just sad all the dragons are dead.
Rip.
But I understand that they probably had to go. I do like the idea, though, that it looks like a hollow dragon. Because, like, I know that Dark Souls 3 happens, like, very much time after Dark Souls 1. So, like, you could argue, like, I'm assuming, like, I could almost, like, rationalize that, like, the armor is the same. Like, the armor, like, the reason you transform is the same. Like, the methods, everything is the only difference is that now, because it's been so long, the armor looks like a starved goat, as you so eloquently put it.
Right.
So, yeah. Any other questions or any standouts from learning I mean, this is also kind of like your basic crash course into the Dark Souls trilogy as a whole. So, any questions in regards to that or anything?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a lot of info for me to process, but I do like that I was starting to, like, piece it together, that the idea that the guy was becoming almost like Sif. I did also think that a lot of the darker aspects of it were really well done. Like, it was very fun in the fact of, like, Roy was saying with the whole Sisyphus example, where, like, I knew Dark Souls, like, I know to an extent, like, Dark Souls is almost a Sisyphean tragedy in a way that you can almost never win, and that trying to win just prolongs the suffering. And I think that's really enjoyable. I think it's really cool that it almost, like, extends the dragons thematically. Like, the dragons were there at the beginning, and then they didn't make it to the end because things just degraded, and they were just hunted. These, like, majestic ancient creatures were wiped out because of not entropy, but because of disparity, because there was a difference. So, like, it almost adds, like, another level of, like maybe Gwen and all the souls shouldn't have happened, because, like, these creatures, they aren't inherently evil. So it's almost like, should the 4 souls have even ever, like, begun? Like, should they have continued going if, like, you knew down the line that it would basically lead to the death of these ancient, near godlike, majestic creatures, and eventually lead to the pain and suffering that is the Dark Souls trilogy, both physically, like, in the real world and in the universe. So
It's, yeah. I mean, it's the whole thing is basically a tragedy. It's just, yep.
I'm
kind
back.
Thank you for joining us. I was afraid those man-eating clams got to you. Which, that being said, I think we should probably head back to the ship because I finally.
Below.
Okay, there we
The
go.
warp. It's taking me back.
Okay. That's probably our cue. We probably need to head back to the ship because I finally got that estus. I finally found the estus flask, so we can take this back to the tavern. And I got this really cool sword from this onion-shaped knight guy. He is taking care of the Hydra, and oh shit, he's dead. Oh shit, I forgot the Hydra can jump. Get back to the ship.
Oh shit.
Okay, we're on the ship. The Hydra's swimming away. I think another knight decided to play with him. But before we wrap things up, thank you very much, dear listeners, for listening to this very long episode. I hope you had some kind of enjoyment. I'm sure Ray and Brody here did too. But before we wrap things up, we just have a couple of announcements to cover and our obligatory shout-outs, of course. Ray, I'll let you start. If we have any announcements, of course.
Let me see. What else do we have? Well, we're making huge progress on the Patreon exclusive rewards we're gonna give, but those are gonna be Patreon exclusive. So if you want to see or get your hands on some of our Patreon exclusive merchandise to celebrate the first 10 individuals, feel free to join, and you too can get your special one-of-a-kind item sent to you. Otherwise, besides that, I don't really have any other announcements, except merchandise is definitely coming next year. Start of 2024? That's next year, right?
Yes.
I think so.
2024.
The warpstone messes with your head.
Yeah. But yes, I've announced what we're getting. I've announced what we're planning. You guys, if you guys know, you guys know. If you guys don't know, then keep your ear to the ground, and we'll announce some merchandise, especially clothes and hats and shit.
Awesome. Back onto the Patreon thing. We have 8 patrons right now, so there are 2 slots left. So if you're really interested in your one-of-a-kind item, do not hesitate. You can donate as little as $1 per month. We do have tiers, which is $1, $5, and $10, or you can do a one-time donation, which we need to figure out how to do that, but that is an option too, if you're so inclined. And if you like what you hear and want to help support us in creating more of this type of material for you to listen to. That being said, I do have one new announcement. I put a poll to our Discord a little while back on what we should name the tavern. Our tavern now has a name, everybody. So we would like to present the Rancid Rodents in honor.
Hell yeah!
In honor of our very first episode covering the Skaven and the attempt on our life that has left us scarred and not quite deformed. So that is the name of our tavern.
It's helped us succeed.
So we are still Grimlore.
It's a fitting name.
But as far as the tavern, if you ever hear of the Rancid Rodent, know that it's the tavern that we're talking about now. So yay! So now
Come over, have a drink.
Yeah, come on over, have a drink. We promise we didn't put any warpstone or Skaven piss in it.
Well, we definitely didn't put one of those in there.
Speaking of Skaven, let's do some shout-outs. First shout-out, thank you, Brody, again for joining us by my request, because this episode will be taking place the day after my birthday. So this is a lovely birthday present for me.
Of course, Brady. I love being here.
So with that out of the way, let's give a shout out to our wonderful patrons. We have the Honorable Knight Sir Flub de Montfort, the Noble Chaos Dwarf Slappy, the Imperial Dwarven Knight Astronautical. We have the Trickster Knight of Zinch Warper, and we have the Powerlifting Knight of Nurgle Big Joe G. We have the Knight now Noble Skaven Exo. We have the Noble Island Pirate Dwarf Admiral King. He's got a lot of titles in his name. Mark from Warhammer, who also likes to smoke a ton of pipeweed. And then
with a name like that.
I know. And then the Wizard Noble of Zinch, Magnus the Rad. Oh yeah.
Sick.
So thank you to all you wonderful patrons. Thank you, Brody, for joining us, for just making all this possible. Again, this is we're doing all this just to basically give back to you guys for making this community amazing and fun and all kinds of shenanigans. And so got a lot more fun stuff planned on the way. And if you like this kind of material, this is, I think, my second episode that I've taken over and done some lore with. So if you want to hear my voice and narration more, please, send us an email at grimlorepodcast@gmail.com. Say something, message us through the Discord, or so on and so forth. Any way that you can communicate with us. If you like this format and want to hear about other settings besides just Warhammer Fantasy, feel free to give us a ring. Anything else you want to add there, Ray or Brody?
We're always down to message. I like having friends, so feel free to message us on whatever means you can, either through Discord or through the Gmail. And we'll probably definitely reply either in our Tavern Talks or in our episodes. We can take some time out of our extremely bountiful amount of time, because our episodes are so short. We can make them a little bit longer to cover some of our emails we've gotten, especially really fun ones.
Yeah, no. The only thing I have to say is come on down to Discord, hang out, have some fun, and shout out to whoever requested me to get back on the podcast so I could feel real good about myself. Make sure to keep doing that, guys.
It's Big Joe. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.